Please be seated. Good evening. I would like to welcome you all to this evening's council meeting. I'd like to extend a special welcome to those who are in attendance for the Mayor's Civic Awards, to the winners, their guests and the judges. I'll now hand over to Mayor Glanville, who will introduce this item and present the awards. Thank you.
Thanks to Madam Speaker and the full council. I know these awards have been long postponed and normally take place at our full council, our new speaker, but this year they're taking place in November. I think we all know that Hackney is a brilliant and inclusive welcoming borough, but it is because of the unsung heroes that go against our school communities. These awards were established in 2016 by former Mayor Pike to celebrate Hackney's civic heroes, not only to give a much-deserved recognition for their efforts, but also to inspire more people to get involved and make a lasting difference to our borough. Tonight, we will recognise and celebrate the wonderful people and organisations within the borough and take pride in the difference they make to people in Hackney every single day. I think it's also that Hackney spirit which shines through all the nominees and winners, Madam Deputy Speaker, a spirit which we've seen all too often rallying to our borough's aid during the 2 years of COVID-19, the challenge of inequality, and now the cost of living crisis. Before turning to the awards, can I just thank all of those that nominated people for the awards, those that weren't successful in winning, but also my fellow judges who had the really hard task of picking the 6 winners. Dr. Ronks, Colette Allen from Hackney Quest, Tara from Hackney Gazette, Euphema, CEO from Femstar Youth, and Tara and Euphema are with us this evening, so thank you. The first of our awards tonight goes to Paul Fusu. It's the second award I discovered that I've given you. Back in 2017, I gave you a Sports Participation Award, which I had forgotten and you had remembered. So here we go again, Paul. But you were described as a real community hero and a superstar. Diagnosed with polio at a young age, Paul is an amazing example of strength and focusing on what you do have in life. Paul has pushed himself to qualify in fitness and instructing and now delivers free classes to patients and residents across the borough. At Aylesdale Surgery, he's part of the Together Better NHS CCG project, where he offers the seated exercise patients twice a week at Frampton Park Church. Paul's classes range from aerobics to salsa to boccia, and they're all accessible to all. The overwhelming success of Paul's classes has meant that expansion to different areas across the borough. I think Spring Hill, Nightingale, all across the borough, as well as Barnabo Court Care Home, where your classes are especially loved and are the highlight of many residents' days. I think we're getting a picture of how amazing Paul here is. Paul was deservingly nominated for this award because he consistently goes above and beyond for his volunteer role. He continues to make sure all participants of his classes can access his sessions by any means necessary. So Paul, here we go. Here is your award. Come up and I will come out. Can we give Paul a massive round of applause? And there's some pretty hefty competition, but I think Paul wins the best strategy. I'm going to pass you the mic because the floor is yours. There you go, Paul.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming to my awards. I'm just so happy and honored to receive this special award. I had a dream before that I want something special But this one is, I think this is it, so happy. I would like to say a very big thank you to Krista here. She's from Volunteering Center Hackney. Without her, I'll be able to be here tonight. So I would like to say a big thank you to her, to Claire, and all the staff as well, all the staff. So thank you so much for supporting me. So happy. Yes, and also I would like to say thank you to all my participants as well from all the surgeries, all FSDEF surgeries, springing surgeries, Nightingale practice, and Benabo courts. I love them, so this is for them as well. And a very big thank you to the mayor as well. Thank you so much. And thank you to you as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Paul wanted to lead a class with us this evening, and I said he couldn't because of time, but the promise from all of us is that we will visit one of Paul's classes or have him back at the town hall to show him in action. So I hope everyone will join me in that promise. Is that okay, Paul? Good, good. So the second person we're recognizing tonight is an award-winning activist and campaigner. Hawa Deba Saisi is an inspiring survivor of female genital mutilation whilst growing up in Sierra Leone. She uses her personal experience to help others. She founded the Hawa Trust, which is a charity to support communities of vulnerable women and girls affected by violence and abuse. Hawa Trust focuses on raising awareness on issues such as child marriage and FGM, working to reduce the risk of girls and young women undergoing FGM here in the UK, as well as in Sierra Leone and abroad. Hawa's charity provides emotional support to women and girls, as well as working with council leaders to increase access to healthcare and awareness. She works closely with organisations to refer women and girls for individual support they need, which is often complex and multi-layered, advocating on their behalf. Hawa's charity also continues to work in Sierra Leone to empower women and girls to bring about change to harmful social norms, FGM and abuse. Hawa Trust is the only FGM organisation of its type that is based in Hackney, and I think we would all agree that your work is vital and that you are an inspiration that selfishly shares your story and experiences of wealth and knowledge to improve the lives of vulnerable women and girls. Please come up, Hawa.
Hello. Hello, good evening, everybody. I thank everybody for this award. I don't know how can I express myself again with this award. It's not for me alone. It's for all women and girls that have gone through FGM, domestic violence, rape. This is for all the world that we are standing for. So end FGM and all violence against women and girls. I don't know. This is not from me. I thank everybody. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. You've made the Hawa Trust a home in Hackney. I thank everybody that nominated us. Thank you.
You. And Hawa is one of the 3 award winners that I think are based in and around Kingsmead. So a real powerhouse of activism. And we're moving on to our 3rd award, which is to Jocelyn Buffon. These are not my words, all of these. Some of them are, some of them aren't. though, you've been described as the Mother Teresa of the block, working with young people in your family and their families in Hackney for over 2 decades. Throughout your career, starting as a youth worker, now managing multiple youth hubs, including Concord, where I remember seeing you in action, and you had to remind me of that as well, so a bit like Paul. Jocelyn, you've built invaluable relationships with residents, and you've made a positive impact on so many, many lives over generations, I fear now. Most recently, though, and I think this is what won you the award this evening, is your work to found Rise 365 in 2019. And I think most of the public gallery is full of Rise 365ers. There we go. That's exactly why you've won. Some of them are award winners in their own right as well. But when the pandemic hit, you thought about the needs of Kingsmead and you thought about how to respond to them. So the community shop, the made-up kitchen, the work around food poverty and delivery, which has turned into a long-term community shop. It's still going strong, over 40 volunteers, most of which are young people. Yep, there we go. And I've seen firsthand, as many of us in this room have, the impact that you have, but also the spirit of volunteering every Saturday. These are just some of the comments from the nominations that won you the award and impressed us as judges. Jocelyn is a testament to everything that is great about Hackney. She is so selfless, and the area I grew up in, Kingsmead Estate, was not great. But her and her team came around and changed it completely, and all for the better. Jocelyn goes above and beyond on a daily basis to support our needs. Once COVID hit in 2020 and the Youth Hub had to close, she developed an emergency food delivery scheme and rallied young people to join Rise 365 to volunteer. We delivered food shopping in our community for a year and a half, making sure vulnerable residents in Kingsmead were taken care of, and the shop is still running now. As a Youth Hub manager, there are so many young people that can refer to Jocelyn as someone who shaped the outcome of their lives for the better. She is more than deserving of this award, and I have never met anyone more devoted to young people in the community in all my life. Now, I would say, don't take their word for it. Look at the incredible film that Rise 365 made. Look at their social media. Get involved. Go down on a Saturday as I did, and also talk to the young people involved in this amazing project. One of the taglines at the start was "Heroes wear hoodies." A simple phrase, but a powerful one that flips on its head perceptions of young people, our estates, and especially Black and global majority residents. It gave back agency, power, and I think shows everything about Rise 365 and what they mean to me and to Hackney. So thank you, Jocelyn. Please come up and accept your award on behalf of, I think, a lot of people in this room. The floor for the not first time in this room is yours.
I'm just going to say a few words. Firstly, thank you to everyone that's turned up to support me this evening. Thank you to all the judges for choosing me for this award. I feel honoured. I definitely feel very honoured. I was born in Hackney, grew up in Hackney, and I believe it's my passion and purpose to support young people and advocate on their behalf because they're amazing. But I also feel that in the whole time that I've worked in Hackney, this has been the most incredible time for young people's voices to be heard, and they are heard, and I'm always going to stand beside them to make sure that it is and continue the work that we're doing. I love you all. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're having a little break from our love of Kingsmead and the award winners to move to another part of the borough and an equally important organisation. So the first winner in the organisation category is Hackney Migrant Centre. Hackney Migrant Centre has been supporting refugees, asylum seekers and vulnerable migrants in need for over 10 years. They provide free advice and support services, including support with immigration, housing, welfare, and access to health. They support visitors to resolve their immigration problems and move out of homelessness and destitution long term, as well as assisting them in addressing immediate issues. I think Hackney, most of us in this room know we really do value the contribution of migrants to our borough. It's rooted in our history, it really is our values, and we know that so many migrants have found safety, sanctuary and home here in Hackney. And HMC goes beyond that through their day-to-day work and strikes at the very heart of, I think, who we are as a borough. The dedication of their volunteers and staff is at the core of keeping our status as a borough of sanctuary alive. And I'm really grateful on behalf of residents old and new for their work. The organisation is currently led by Director Charlotte alongside her dedicated members of staff and an incredible group of volunteers and trustees. Despite many challenges, HMC continues to provide support and keep their doors open during the pandemic, and they continue to go above and beyond to create a welcoming and safe environment for those who need their services. They're one of the few organisations as well that work with solicitors and barristers to offer legal advice in the borough to part of the population that needs it most. Your contribution is vital to the migrant population of Hackney, who live often in fear and worry and face complex experiences and trauma. You've also stood in solidarity with migrants in Hackney and beyond, the most vulnerable and marginalised, committing to help them overcome injustice and the immigration system. And you were former Speaker's Charity under then Councillor Sales, and you form a vital part of the borough's practical help. But you're also part of that collective resistance to austerity and the hostile environment. And I can't thank you enough for the work that you do to challenge me and the council to do more, and especially your response when need has arisen in the Home Office hotels in Hackney. That resistance to the hostile environment and making sure that you galvanise that and keep that flame alive in Hackney is incredibly important to us in the council chamber. I know that former director has been suffering from living with long COVID, a motion that we passed last month, and I'd like to thank him for his contribution and invite Charlotte to come up and accept the award. And the floor is very much yours.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Thank you. Charlotte's asked me to respond because I've been around longer. And we're absolutely thrilled to have Charlotte with us, but very sad to have lost our previous director because of long COVID. I'd like to thank you all very much for the award and the kind words that Mayor Glanville has said about us. I understand, I've only come to this at the very last minute, so I guess compared to Paul, I'm probably the worst dressed person who accepting an award. But I understand that the title of the event is Unsung Heroes. And I would say, I mean, it's very nice to be called an unsung hero, but really the unsung heroes are the men and women who come to our centre to get advice, who are really heroic in their resilience and resistance to the hostile environment. And it's really nice to know that what we do is appreciated, because what we do with a huge team of volunteers and a small staff is something that we're all committed to, because we know that the hostile environment is wrong. We know that the difficulties people have in getting work, getting housing, getting the right to pursue normal lives, living in precarious and awful housing conditions is wrong. And it's really nice to know that the council is behind us in trying to challenge that. It's quite gratifying also to be told that we have successfully needled the council on various occasions. And it is true, because there have been complaints that we've made in some services which involve the council, and they have improved. And I think it is very important to have that connection with the council, because a lot of the people that we see are hidden from everyday view, and they're hidden because they're forced to be hidden. And it's great to be able to bring them into the light, and so that people who don't have access to them actually through our work are able to meet them. So thank you very much indeed. We really appreciate this, and we hope we'll go on for, well, we don't want to go on for at all long, but as long as we have to, we will.
Thank you. And there is also, I think there's a lot of need in Hackney. And sometimes when we talk about how we're working with those with no recourse to public funds and migrants, people think and argue back, certainly on social media, sometimes in positive ways, sometimes in really negative ways, about sort of charity begins at home and why are you focusing on? There are no people tonight that are going to sleep in Hackney that are expected to live on £8 a week, other than those in the Home Office hotels in our borough. And unless I don't think I'm wrong in saying I don't think their benefits were uplifted by inflation. So that need that many of us see in our communities and many of the other organisations that are winning awards tonight meet, there is something deeply, deeply wrong that people in central London this evening are expected to live on £8 a week. Coming back in slightly change of tone, back to Kingsmead, our final award for Kingsmead and its associated organisations is to Apex, which is led by Faisal Parabai. It provides high quality provision for young people, including education, drama, sports, as well as mentoring, coaching and family support. During the pandemic, Apex ensured that many young people who did not have access to IT equipment were not impacted. They supplied iPads, laptops, tablets, many to disadvantaged families, as well as supporting families to ensure people's education did not suffer. The value of education to our many diverse communities in Hackney is something I don't have to emphasise, because we all see it daily in our schools, community organisations and on our streets. But Apex's commitment to ensuring the most disadvantaged students did not and do not get overlooked remains an inspiration to us all. And I'm really proud that so many of us in this room support their work. Apex particularly supports low-income families, signposting to resources and services that they might not otherwise be aware of, such as housing and employment advice and benefit support. The primary goal of Apex is to support those young people and their families, work to address education gaps and attainment levels, and especially around young black boys and looked after children. As part of this, they deliver an intensive programme at Dornbury Primary School, focused on free school meal pupils as part of a wider community partnership with the school, providing hot meals as well for free school meal pupils during the school holidays. As well as young people, Apex works closely with parents and carers, delivering educational classes and training for parents within Wally Foster Centre, and they will continue to work in partnership with Hackney Council to provide these classes and with other partner organisations. I'm sure that we've only captured a snapshot of all of your work. There's a testimony to the partnerships that you also have with Sanctuary, Hackney Marsh Partnership and Immediate Theatre, and I think I've seen some impressive work from Immediate Theatre there, and you're obviously so close and embedded to Kingsmead in Clapton. It's clear from all of the testimonies in the nominations that you go above and beyond providing for young people and families in Hackney. I know this isn't your only awards that I've seen given in this building, but I hope it means just as much as those that you've received from HCVS. There's a huge amount of love for what you do. Thank you. I think we'll do the family photo first. Now we'll do the. I know who's the most important person in the room.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Did I blink? I fear I did. The floor is yours.
Wow, I have prepared something, so. Oh, gosh. I'll be very quick. For those that know me, if I don't write something down, I'll forget it. Firstly, thank you very much to everybody. Actually, I was really shocked to receive a phone call from Labrea in the comms team. She phoned me and she said, "You've won a Mayor Civic Award." And I actually thought it was one of my young people calling me and pulling my leg. So it's good to be up here and get the award. I'd like to thank, obviously, the organisations or the individuals that nominated us, and also the judging panel for selecting us for this award. I look around the room today and I had the opportunity to meet some of the other winners who've received awards today, and their incredible contributions to the lives of residents in Hackneys makes me truly humbled to be accepting an award today. Just a very quick, in terms of context, for those that don't know about Apex, and you heard from Phil, we are a young people and family organisation based at the Wally Foster's Community Centre in Homerton. We're right next door to Kingsmead Estate. Go Kingsmead, we've cleaned the floor today. And you're more than welcome and invited to come down and come and see us in action. However, our journey, we feel, is quite unique in so much that, as Phil mentioned, we originally started off as a tuition organisation to help raise attainment levels for young people and help them with their grades. And it was as simple as that. But that was 5 years ago. And a lot has happened in that time. Society has changed, the pandemic has come and gone. And we took that leap of faith to enter into this sector so that we can provide a holistic approach to supporting young people and families. We now work with some of the most disadvantaged families in the borough, and we look at them as family, and that's our approach to supporting them as best as we can. It's not just about raising attainment levels for us anymore. It's about raising aspirations for the families so there's a legacy as we move forward, so we make absolute change. Phil mentioned some of our projects. We have our mentoring and leadership project for our young black boys. We work with Hackney's holiday and activity food programs where we provide hot meals for those children on free school meals in the school holidays. We work with a number of young people who are on the barrier of exclusion from schools, providing opportunities for them to continue to learn. And that's really important to us. Some of our families, our children have got very high special educational needs. So again, providing that environment for them to learn is really, really important to us. Equally, we've also worked with the council on things like the Kickstart project, where we help people back into work and provide opportunities for older residents to get placements in our offices so they can upskill themselves and really improve their quality of life. Phil mentioned some of the organizations that we work with, and we wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for those partnerships. You mentioned Charmaine from Immediate Theatre. We work with Hackney Quest, who are here today. Sab from Salon Peace. And you mentioned Daubeny Primary School, but that's our flagship project. And there is an absolute, if you wanted to see an inspirational head teacher in action, Mr. Logan, that's where you need to go and see. I mean, he's absolutely fundamental to the success of what we do. I would obviously like to thank Phil and the team here, council staff that we've been able to engage with the work that we've been doing down at Kingsmead. It is the heartbeat of the area. And my plea is that we make something happen so that that continues to be the place where young people can make a difference. I'd like to mention Susan, Cam. I know Humaira's not here today. You have relentlessly supported us, and our young people just absolutely value it when you come down and see them and really take time out of your busy schedule to come and make a difference. So I'm eternally thankful for that. Lastly, and I'll end on this one here, I may be the one that's picking up this award today, but I have an absolutely fantastic and dedicated team behind me. Some young people who've gone through the process and now are working with us. But I wouldn't be able to do the things that I am able to do without my team. So I pick up the award on behalf of my team today. Thank you.
Thank you, Faisal. I'm glad Mr. Logan got a big shout. You cannot walk down there without Mr. Logan always being there. I don't know how he does it, but he's always there. The final winner, and firmly last but not least, is Connecting All Communities. They're a devoted group of volunteers who have been supporting families in need for years. Their primary aim is to tackle segregation and encourage community cohesion by embracing common values, community goals, and celebrating our differences. They do this by providing a safe and engaging and cohesive program, which includes a variety of events, advice, and activities, including mentoring, employment support, housing and welfare advice, citizenship programs, translation services, cooking classes, intergenerational activities, annual events such as Eid in the Park, and Dinner for the Homeless, and much, much more. During the pandemic and beyond, Connecting All Communities also supported families with weekly food parcels and hot meals. Sukri, CEO of Connecting Communities, has been described as selfless and inspiring by so many who have benefited from her and her team's support. I think I first met you on Pembury, where you were showcasing your work and really showing incredible leadership and that commitment to partnership. I think downstairs we were talking about, we mainly now meet you online when you are being a devoted mother and activist, but you're having to do all of your meetings from your car on the move, which I just think you never ever stop. That's the impression that I get. So without further ado, please come up, Sukri, and accept the award on behalf of Connecting All Communities. Are we good? Oh, sorry. The floor is yours.
Hello everyone. I'm a bit nervous, but I'll try my best. My name is Shukri. I was born in civil war in Somalia, East Africa. My friend here, she's from Eritrea, and Connecting All Communities was born because the place I was born, there was chaos. There was civil war. You can imagine the kind of things that can happen. So once I came here to have peace, and I found division, and I didn't understand why a city that has the most diverse, that every person around the world you can find in London, there's no one missing, I guess, but still there's a huge division. I didn't understand why. I didn't know who's doing these divisions, but it's naturally happening, whether we find reasons to divide ourselves. But I realized there's more for us to unite than to divide. But unfortunately, a lot of us don't see that. And we come up with all the reasons to divide us. So I thought, basically, I learn English very quickly, even though I get bullied at school for not being able to speak English. And I try to support mums who are struggling to learn English, and I support them through translations and a lot of other things, and help with them at school issues as well. And we've been doing that years and years and years, and all of a sudden people start saying, why don't you set up an organization, because you're so tiny but you're doing so much. And and then I thought, I was so afraid. I didn't know what would happen. I was so afraid of the policies and structures and all of this and that. And every time we apply for fundings, it was huge amount of time that you put in and the hope that you get something. But most of the time we were returned. But I would like to take this opportunity, first of all, to say thank you to Peabody, Pembury, because they believed in us. They've given us their space for free, and that's where we were born. And we will never forget Peabody and Pembury Community Centre. I would also like to take this opportunity to say thank you to every single person who has made us who we are, such as Mubrak here, who's standing beside me. Mubrak is like me. She's a refugee. She's from Eritrea. And also Timnid, who's not here, Mahad, who's the chef, who's an international chef, he cooks, I think, delicious food. and I'm really sorry if I've forgotten a lot of people, and I'm sure I have. And I want to ask them for forgiveness if I. And also, I want to say thank you to every single person who believed in us, who voted for us, because we never thought we would actually win. I was like, "Are you sure? Are you sure?" Several times I say, "Are you sure it's us? Why? Who voted for us? I want to know who nominated us, who believes in us." And honestly, we were so grateful for that, and we're really grateful for every single person here. And I believe together we can change the world for better. And together we all have more similarities than differences. And I think we have more to unite than to divide. And hopefully we'll make our world a better place.
I think that says it all, and why the awards are so important. But if the world was run by the 6 organisations and individuals in front of me, the world would be a much better place. Thank you to my fellow judges, all those that took part in the awards nominating, and our winners: Paul, Hawa, Jocelyn, Hackney Migrant Centre, Apex, Sukri, and Connecting All Communities. And if you've been inspired by these awards, they will be back next year. Please think about how you can pass the baton on, include and celebrate all that's best about Hackney. And thank you all for coming. Thank you.
Good evening. I'd like to welcome you all to this evening's council meeting and to those members of the public who are watching the live stream. I'd like to extend my congratulations to the winners of the Mayor's Civic Awards for their outstanding contributions to the lives of Hackney residents. Shall we give them another clap, I think? Very well deserved. I'd like to give a reminder to those councillors who are accessing the meeting remotely that you are not counted as being present for the purpose of the Local Government Act 1972, and you may not vote on any item under consideration. Finally, can I please remind all councillors and officers who may be introducing reports, asking questions, responding to questions, or contributing to the debate to ensure you switch on your microphones to ensure you are heard on the live stream. Please also be succinct so that we can conclude the meeting by 10 p.m. We'll now move on to agenda item 2, apologies for absences. Apologies for absence have been received from Deputy Mayor Bramble, Councillor Adajari, Chapman, Coburn and Lynch. Councillor Kennedy. Councillor Maxwell. Steinberg.
Councillor Crowthwaite.
Was there another? Yes, sorry. Councillor Sabatar. I think she's on the live stream, yeah. Apologies from Councillor Patrick. Are there any other apologies? Oh, she's here.
Yeah.
Made up time. Are there any other apologies?
Councillor
No,
Young,
Councillor.
please, me.
What was that, sorry?
Apologies from me.
Oh,
I have sent them.
no, that's
all right.
fine. That's fine. Other councillors joining remotely, Young and Potter and Satmatar. Is that right? Yes. Yeah, fantastic. For those councillors joining the meeting remotely, if you wish to speak or comment, please use the raised hand function and I will invite you to speak if time permits. Please also refrain from using the chat function as this is not visible for councillors attending in person or those watching the live stream. We'll move on to agenda item 3, which is the announcements. Since the last meeting on the 26th of October, I've been honoured to have attended 5 events in my role as Deputy Speaker. The first was the wonderful Diwali celebration here at the Town Hall, which brought members of the Hindu and Sikh community to celebrate with food, dance and the switching on of our lights in the town square. The next day saw the postponed highlights of our wonderful Hackney Carnival showcased at Shoreditch Town Hall. It really was a truly amazing event full of joy, dance and music, and I want to pay tribute to all those who took part, performed so brilliantly, as well as all those who made the event happen, including the hosts at Shoreditch Town Hall. Next up was the Antigua and Barbuda anniversary event at St Matthias Church, a beautiful service, again representing some of Hackney's rich diversity and culture, and with one of the best steel band recitals I have heard for a long time. Finally, last weekend, I was very fortunate to attend 2 events. Firstly, the Lord Mayor's Show, watching the parade from Mansion House. I was especially proud to see the wonderful Hackney City Farm march past and represent our borough. And secondly, last Sunday was Remembrance Day, and I could not have been more proud of the way our borough came to show their respect on this important day. From the armed forces to the Brownies, the people who attended the event and all those many, many people who made the running of the day so seamless. I want to pay special tribute to the warm welcome and kindness shown by Saint Church in hosting the service, to Reverend Al Gordon who led us and Reverend Paul Cowley who spoke with such passion. In the difficult times we find ourselves in, this event, and indeed all the others I attended, acted as very welcome pockets of hope and light, and reminded me just why Hackney is indeed the best of places to live and call our home. Moving on to agenda item 4, declarations of interest. Members are to note the guidance on declaring interests as set out in the agenda. Are there any declarations of interests relating to any item on the agenda? If so, could members please declare it now, indicating which item it relates to and the nature of the interest? None. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 5, minutes of the previous meeting. Can we agree the minutes of the previous extraordinary meeting of the council held on the 26th of October 22 as a true and accurate recording of proceedings? Councillor Steinberger, is this a matter of accuracy? Councillor
It seems to be that this council basically, now again, I'm going to go through the minutes, but it's just, we had last time, we were discussing these minutes. There's nothing there at all. Nothing. We talk, it looks like as if it's Trafalgar Square Sunday or Green, where we talk and nothing gets put into the agenda. Now, the fact is, you were given proper accuracy about it. The speaker in the middle silenced me, made me be quiet and said that it would be sorted. Not only it's not sorted, there's nothing there. Now, following on from there, it ties in with continuation. One of the things which we were told was that any councillor who goes out in the middle of the meeting and goes away is part of the minutes. Can you please show me where that is in the minutes? Which councillors actually left the meeting last time in the middle of the council meeting is in the minutes? Second of all, these minutes where it says very clearly, and we keep on going on and on and on about the same stuff. There was not just one councillor, Councillor Papier has been very nice. There was quite a few councillors who left the same time as we left. Now, I don't want to be the policeman here, I haven't got time for this. It's not there in the minutes. And I don't know what we have to do. Do we have to employ our own people and tell them, please do the minutes? Because
I
it's
have
not the
been
officers-
assured that it is being dealt with externally and
But
it
why
is being,
why is it here?
I know that it's being looked into.
Yeah, but what's
and the
there to look at? How long does
discussions.
it take to look into? Shall I come and help you look into it? It's supposed to be in the
I
minutes.
think for the purpose of this meeting, we will have to move on, and I thank you for your contribution, and I can assure you that this is being looked into
I don't-
externally.
But Madam Speaker,
So I
it's-
will have to say that's it
Yeah,
for this
so we'll have
agenda
to vote
item.
against these because
Okay,
it's not
thank you.
proper minutes.
Thank
It's
you so
obviously the
much for
Labour
your
minutes,
time.
And we want the council minutes.
Okay, thank you so much for your time, and I can assure you it has been looked into and is being looked into. So shall we now? We need to move on, I'm afraid. I'm so sorry. We will now be voting. Now, do we agree the minutes? Recorded. Okay, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, thank you so much. We will have to leave it now. No, I understand. No, it's being dealt with externally. It is being dealt with externally. I will have to move on now.
Councillor Steinberger, the Speaker has ruled.
Sorry, can you?
I'm moving a motion for the member not to be heard again.
Not to be heard again. Okay, I'm going to move on now. We'll move on to agenda item 6 because we do have a very full agenda tonight. The petition. You'll see from the agenda papers that a petition on motorcycle and scooter parking charges has been received. I understand that there are 3 people who will be introducing the petition. Please note that you will have a total of 5 minutes to do so. It is kindly requested that you stick to the allocated time. Can I invite the lead petitioner, Karen Neal, who is accompanied by Katie Killip and Ben Pearson, to address the council? Thank you.
Good evening, councillors. Good evening, councillors. I'm speaking to you today on behalf of 7,750 people who have signed a petition against Hackney Council's planned motorcycle and scooter parking charges. The council announced these plans in 2020, saying they were aimed at improving air quality and reducing the amount of curbside space used for parking. They claim most riders would pay £5 per month. In the subsequent consultation, the council received almost 4,000 responses, 80% of which were against the plan in a report which was fundamentally flawed. It argued that motorcycles are more polluting than cars, using this as a justification for the charges and to dismiss the consultation feedback from the 56% of respondents who felt that bikes were better for the environment than cars. This claim was based on a 20-year-old study which looked at non-catalytic converter motorcycles from the mid-1990s, bikes which have been long obsolete. The report was wrong. Official data from the Department for Environment shows that an average motorcycle in the UK emits around 4 times less nitrogen dioxide per mile than a car. The report was contradictory. Although it said that most riders would pay only £5 a month consultation, responses showed that 51% of riders use their bike for commuting. In fact, most riders would face short stay parking charges of £6 per hour, which for an everyday commuter adds up to £14,000 per year. Charging bikes the same as cars is fundamentally unjust. The decision Cabinet took failed to recognise that bikes are fundamentally different to cars. Motorcycles don't contribute to congestion, which reduces emissions for every vehicle on the road. They take up less parking space, which allows curbside space to be freed up for other uses. The council has said that they don't charge based on space taken up. But one of the stated aims of these charges is to free up space. The charges are totally disproportionate. The average motorcycle in London today is vastly less polluting than a car on a per mile basis. Electric motorcycles produce no tailpipe emissions and have similar non-exhaust particulate emissions to an e-cargo cycle. Yet the council plans to charge them the same as electric cars. The council has said that motorcycles would be charged less if they have lower emissions, but their understanding of motorcycle emissions is fundamentally flawed. The fact that electric motorcycles and cars will pay the same is just one example that proves that. As a result of the mistaken decision to align bike parking prices with cars, Hackney now faces a policy which will see some of the lowest impact vehicles on the road discouraged. Riders are going to be charged astronomical prices to park, far more than other local authority charges. The lack of a suitable commuter pass means an effective ban on commuting by motorcycle in Hackney. Some riders are faced with paying the same as a car, whether they take their car or their bike. Obviously, motorcyclists in this instance will choose to take a car. The unavoidable result of this policy will therefore be to increase car use. Because of the errors in the council's rationale, this policy will not meet the council's aims. It will not improve air quality, it will increase congestion, it will increase pollution, and it will increase car use. It will not reduce curbside space used for parking.
You have 1 minute left.
Hi, I'm Katie and I run a branding and marketing business in Hackney and I ride an electric motorbike. 1 week of commuting on my bike has less carbon impact than a cup of coffee. And I've removed my batteries and charged them up in the house, so there's no need for infrastructure to support it. I need to be able to ride my scooter instead of using an e-bike because I often carry large amounts of technical equipment, art supplies, and even shopping in one journey, which would otherwise require several trips or just a taxi. Public transport takes my journey from 14 minutes to 45, and catching a bus involves a 15-minute walk through dodgy areas at both ends. Having been mugged and attacked in Hackney during 2021, that's not something I'll be doing, and I'll end up catching a taxi instead. Being charged £30 a day to park my bike means that an Uber at £22 to get home and back is a more viable option, and it keeps my commute at around 15 to 20 minutes. Another effect of the charges is that I'll no longer be able to nip out and use local print services who serve me regularly, and I'll have to use online vendors that use a van.
We have 1 final minute.
The impact of the charges will be entirely negative to me, my business, and to Hackney, and I'm asking you as a business owner and someone who cares about Hackney to reconsider. Thank you.
If the council choose instead, as many other councils do, to incentivise motorcycles and scooters, Hackney could be a greener and cleaner borough for everyone. If in fact just 3% of car drivers switch to using a motorcycle, this would have the same environmental impact as a complete ban on motorcycle commuting. Riders care about the environment just as much as everyone. We want to help the council achieve their aims by understanding the benefits of motorcycles and scooters for everyone in Hackney.
That's time, I'm afraid. Thank you. Oh, please feel free to stay there. Do members wish to debate the petition? And if so, you'll have up to 15 minutes to do so. Councillor Steinberger.
Thank you very much for bringing this petition. You obviously saw the shenanigans so far here today. I'll get down to my question, basically. CPZ,
Can you speak into the microphone? Thank you.
CPZ is supposed to be here for, the law is, it's not supposed to be for making money. Obviously, Hackney are lovely in doing it. They love doing that, making it a business. Now, can you confirm with me what's the reason that actually, why are they actually planning to charge motorbikes when most of the people who were consulted said that they don't want these changes? So on what basis, besides obviously the way Hackney run the democracy, it makes sense with their democracy, but other than that, on what basis are they going ahead and now charging motorbikes full whack? And again, bearing in mind the law is that CPZ is not supposed to be making money, what's the justification about this?
Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Councillor. You're quite right that the consultation on these charges showed widespread opposition. In fact, only 1 in 5 respondents supported the charges. They were opposed by 97% of motorcyclists. They was opposed by a majority of residents and everyone who doesn't own a vehicle at all. The council do claim that these charges are not aimed at making money. However, it's hard to see how a £14,000 a year charge for a commuter would not bring in a little income for the council. The council will claim that it's not a ban on motorcycle commuting, which could really be the only way that it wouldn't be about making money in our view.
Thank you. Can I ask Councillor Lisser to speak now?
Thank you. How do you feel about the council pressing ahead with their plans, given that they have accepted errors in the evidence base and that these errors were clearly consequential to the decision to align PTW parking with car parking charges?
I think most people that are affected by these charges feel that it is it's class cleansing. How can you do this to working people? We are talking about people not that just live in Hackney, but commute into Hackney and drive Hackney's businesses. Who are you going to get to work for you? No one, because the transport system is overloaded in London. We all know that. It is expensive. It can't cope with the people already on it. How is it going to cope with even more? It's like we don't belong, just like is happening all over London. If you're working class and you work and you ride or walk or drive a car, you don't fit here anymore. It is senseless. I would like somebody that made this decision to look me in the face and explain to me how £14,000 for a working person to park a vehicle is justifiable. It is not. This is probably one of the highest parking charges in the world for a motorcycle. So that is a record Hackney should be really proud of breaking. How can you justify it? It makes no sense. You really, therefore, should charge cycles to park because our footprint is not much more than a cycle. TfL have stated that. There are several researches that state that. How can you do this? It doesn't make sense.
Okay, thank you very much. Can I ask Councillor Binny Lubbert, please, to speak?
Thank you for this petition, bringing it to the full council. This is really more a question for the council and the mayor. Has the council taken into account the potential unintended negative consequences to air quality and traffic if these charges encourage riders off of their powered two-wheelers and into private cars?
That will be incorporated into the mayor's response. Thank you. We'll move to Councillor Papier.
Small question. You were saying that the motorbike's impact is less than a car. So how does that make you feel as a cyclist? How does it make you feel? And also, did you get any response from this council or officers justifying charging you the same amount for a motorbike than they're charging for cars? Did you get any just response as a group?
I did attend a Zoom meeting with the council around, was it a year ago? And they were pretty much just dumbfounded. They didn't have any answer. And I think actually at that point in time, they weren't aware of the facts. So that's why we really want to engage them in a conversation about that. Because it's not too late to change your mind if you now have learned something and realize that you are making a mistake and it is an error to move forward. I switched from a petrol bike to an e-scooter to do something right for the environment. And I believe very passionately that more people should be encouraged, especially onto electric scooters because of their low environment impact. But putting these charges in place is going to undo the potential for doing that.
Could I just add one thing? Councillor said, how do we feel? It's like we don't matter. That's how we feel. When we stand here with facts, with official figures and facts, and we say to you, this was done incorrectly, you have used false information, that we can prove that you've used false information. And we're standing here showing you statistics saying we are the answer. We're part of the answer to pollution and congestion. And we're laughed at. How can that be right?
If there's no further questions, yep.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing this and for the really passionate, informative discussion. We've raised at previous cabinet meetings about electric cars now being charged, and I wondered if you could just talk a bit more about what factors you think should be considered in terms of if we're moving away from just tailpipe emissions. Do you think this is a good time for us to be talking about charging based on, like, you know, the space that things take up and things like that?
I think vehicles need to be separated first and foremost. Cars and vans and four-wheeled vehicles are cars and vans and four-wheeled vehicles. There should be no charge for motorcycles, e-scooters and scooters. Or, for example, I'm sure if you compromised and said what Westminster Council does, £1 per day. Now that's affordable. That's not unrealistic. It works in Westminster. Or you could say, let's do what Haringey does, or let's do what most London boroughs do, which is in fact encourage people to ride motorcycles and scooters and park for free because they are part of the solution. You know, you can't charge someone when you say to someone, we have an environmental climate crisis. And then when you say, well, if I put my hand up and say, I've got an answer, we can help you, we want to help you, we're part of the solution, you say to me, okay, I'm going to charge you for being part of the solution then. Thank you.
Also, having ridden an electric scooter for 4 years, I found it's a really hard sell to get people into the mindset of charging their batteries up, which I actually only do once a week and only costs me 10p. They think it's inconvenient because they can't just pop to a station when they need a refill. Now, I had a petrol bike and I was refilling it at the cost of £15 every 2 to 3 days. That's more inconvenient than unplugging your batteries when they hit 20% and plugging them in at home. But it's a real mindset change. And I have kids telling me they'll never nick my bike because they hate it because it's electric, which is brilliant. But you know, it is a challenge to get people off their old habits, and the e-scooters, particularly with the low impact on the environment, are a massive solution to the problems that we have with congestion and environmental issues. So I just think it's crazy to discourage it in its infancy.
Thank you. Can I just check if there are any further questions at this stage? No? Okay, thank you very much. Please feel free to sit down during the Mayor's response, or you can stand there, whichever is more convenient. I'll now ask the Mayor to respond on behalf of the Cabinet Member for the Environment and Transport who cannot be here tonight.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to the petitioners. I know that you've waited a long time to come to full council, and that you were originally down to attend September's full council, which we obviously had to readjust in light of Her Majesty the Queen's death. Nobody, to answer the charge, has been laughing at you, and you have been heard. And if I remember correctly, I think it's been heard twice at Cabinet in terms of a campaign, and there have been 2 separate consultations as well as this petition. I'm obviously not the Cabinet Member, but I do represent him. I recognise completely the strength of feeling in the gallery and in the petitioners, and that you've raised a number of issues tonight, and a number of things have come up in terms of the debate in the chamber. I appreciate the time you've taken to make your views known, as well as those 7,000 people that signed the petition. And as I said, we consulted separately on the principle of motorcycle charging, and then we have separately then rolled that into the consultation around our parking enforcement plan with residents. So I don't accept that we haven't been consulting and engaging. I also don't accept there should be no change. I do think motorcyclists should pay for the use of the public highway and parking. That has to be a fundamental principle. During our 6-month consultation on motorcycle charges, we received feedback from almost 5,000 people, and Madam Speaker, there was a further consultation in 2 stages on the parking enforcement plan, which saw a further 8,000 responses. It shows the extent of engagement, not just with motorcyclists, but with residents and other vehicle owners. Our parking enforcement plan is just one step on our journey to be the most walking and cycling friendly borough in London. And I just do not accept the attempts to bring in the culture wars class, or that parts of our borough are too dodgy to walk or cycle in at all. And I know that formed part of the petitioning. The decision the petition refers to is the plan and decision made already by Cabinet, and then for my recommendation to this meeting is the petition is referred back to Cabinet, where the decision-making powers rest. But before we get to that, I just want to address some of the points made by the petitioners here, and then we can discuss again at Cabinet. As Councillor Cockburn has previously stated, and there was also the meeting and engagement, we recognise the important role that motorcycles, scooters and mopeds play in the Hackney economy. As the petitioners know, I was supportive of the delivery drivers campaign in Dalston and ensured the council provided them with adequate facilities and space, and I know other councillors also joined that campaign. We also recognise that some of our residents choose 2-wheelers to get around the borough. We also recognise, though, that all forms of vehicles, including motorcycles, produce emissions, and that there are emissions embedded in both EV motorcycles and EV cars, and they need to be recognised in the charging regime. There are a significant number of people who commute to work in Hackney by motorbike each day. Not all of them are Hackney residents. And our hierarchy is very clear. It is pedestrians, it is cyclists, it is public transport, private hire, motorcycle, private car. That is what our transport hierarchy is built around. And it is about supporting walking and being cycling friendly and reducing the amount of miles driven on our roads, as you have said, to tackle air pollution and pollution, but also to improve public health more broadly. That means always prioritising the cleanest form of transport, walking, cycling and public transport, treating all other private transport options based on tailpipe emissions with a surcharge for diesel vehicles. Placing motorcycles on the same footing as other vehicles with permit prices based on emissions they produce help us deliver on those pledges. But in the consultation, you were firmly heard with an expansion of the charging bands from 3 to 7 at the request of petitioners, meaning that bikes under 125cc will see a permit price of £1.30 a week, which is a fair and proportionate charge. 125cc covers most mopeds, and given that the top-selling moped and motorbike in the UK in 2021 was a scooter
Mayor
with
Glanville,
a
1 minute.
125cc engine, I'm confident that two-wheelers in Hackney will face affordable parking charges. Under our new banding regime, the least polluting vehicles, including most powered two-wheelers, will see parking permit charges 7 to 10 times less than the drivers of most polluting vehicles. We do not support powered commuting in this borough of any type, and that is why we're introducing these charges in the PEP, both to motorcyclists and to other vehicles. Our priority is always active travel. I recognise that brings challenges. I've always said that there should be investment in motorcycle infrastructure in return for the proportion of permit charges that have been paid. I think you raised some important points. My commitment is twofold: to discussing this again at Cabinet, being at the next meeting with you, and ensuring that we review the impacts of this charge around some of the issues that you have suggested over the first year of implementation. And if some of the negative externalities that have been discussed in this room do come to pass, then we can look at changing policy to accommodate them. Thank you, Madam Speaker. And as I say, I suggest that Council refers the petition back to Cabinet where the decision-making rests. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Glanville. As the subject matter of the petition is something only Cabinet can decide, because the issue of parking charges is an executive function, no vote on the proposed action specified within the petition can be taken, as it is not something which is within the gift of the Council to do. Council is therefore required to refer the matter to Cabinet and may decide to do so with or without making a recommendation. Can members agree to refer this matter to Cabinet? Do members wish to make any recommendations to Cabinet? Councillor Steinberger.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Since this is something new, can we have like more of a breakdown of what exactly, because this is the first time I've heard such a thing. So can we have a breakdown of what exactly that means before I get back to Cabinet?
I've been advised that we can send you all the information after tonight. Hopefully before then.
It's very Googleable, Councillor Steinberger. It is on the Council's website.
Hello,
Is this about recommendations?
Yes.
Fantastic.
I would like to propose a recommendation that the Cabinet review the evidence that's been presented.
That's fine, yes. Seconded by Councillor Steinberger, thank you. Any other recommendations? We will vote then on the recommendation. It's just the one then, thank you very much.
Madam Deputy Speaker, we include the commitments that I made in that as well, because I
Yes.
don't have a problem with review process.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that's fine. We'll do that. So we will vote on the recommendation then from Councillor Binny Lubbert. All those in favour, please raise your right hand. All those against, please raise your right hand. So not carried. At this stage, the petitioners are very welcome to stay or to leave, whichever is more convenient for you. But we will move on now to agenda item 7, questions from members of the public. I'd like to welcome Kofo David, who is in attendance in the chamber this evening, to read out his question. If you go to the stand, I think that's the best. Thank you.
With the level of support that was given to rough sleepers and homeless people during the pandemic, we know that there is a lot the council can do for them. Can the cabinet members say what support is in place for rough sleepers during this winter, especially with the cost of living crisis?
Thank you so much. Councillor Etty, will you please respond? You have up to and not exceeding 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I'd like to say a big thank you to my ex-colleague, Kofo David. I mean, he's been a very great colleague and I'm really proud of working with you, and it's good to see you again. Yes, with regards to rough sleeping, first of all, let me just thank you for bringing this on. Tackling rough sleeping is about far more than funding someone on the street. It's much more than for us to get them into housing. It's much more than simply putting a roof over their heads. They need support from a range of different professionals and voluntary services, whether it's healthcare, addiction support, it could be mental support. Some do have multi-complex needs, depending on the needs. It's difficult though, we all understand. And some people opt for the perceived safety and familiarity of life on the street over the options for accommodation. But what we will continue to do is to persuade people and work with them to take these offers up. But we have no power to force this on them because they have a right to make a choice on what they want. But we will never give up on someone, and we will keep working with them until they feel able to take up the offer of accommodation that is there. Let me make it clear that the Council and partner organizations, we successfully assisted 219 residents during the pandemic into settled accommodation, both either rough sleeping and also those at risk of homelessness. Building on this success, the Council has bid for funding from Department for Levelling Up Housing and Communities to deliver support and solution for rough sleepers, which include provision of emergency and assessment bed spaces to help residents off the street throughout the year. This allows dedicated officers to assess their need and their eligibility so that longer-term options may be considered. The outreach team delivered in partnership with Thamesbridge. They provide regular contact with identified rough sleepers in the borough, and they respond to referrals of new rough sleepers made to StreetLink. And let me quickly just chip in. A few days ago, my colleague, Councillor Christopher Kennedy, made a referral to StreetLink and he got a response, just to ensure, to let residents know and be confident that you always get a response when you definitely refer anyone to StreetLinks. It does work. It really works. So this ensures that we have a clear understanding of the street population and their needs and vulnerabilities. We work with residents to secure appropriate housing solutions, including reconnection with family. It is testament to the outreach team that despite the housing crisis and increasing numbers of new rough sleepers, only 7 residents have been sleeping rough on the streets of Hackney for more than 3 months. When temperatures dropped to freezing over the winter, like you rightly said, the Council will offer temporary accommodation to all rough sleepers. This is in line with the severe weather protocol, which operates across London. And I've said previously, where residents are concerned and think someone is bedding down outside, they are encouraged to make a referral via the StreetLink application or website. And if they're worried about someone who is seriously ill,
Councillor Etty, 1 minute.
1999. Let me quickly assure you that last week we had our annual count, and seizing this opportunity to say thank you to everyone that were out there to do the annual count on behalf of the Council. And that is how much we work. And I'd like to say a big thank you to the team, to all that supports us, the residents that were there. And I hope that answers your question. Thank you for bringing this on.
Thank you, Councillor Etty. Kofo David, do you have a supplementary question? Your supplementary question must arise directly out of the original question or reply and must not be a speech or statement.
Thank you, Councillor Etty. You were just mentioning the protocol which applies across London. Could you please elaborate on that? You didn't get to finish.
Thank you very much. It's called the Pan-London Severe Weather Emergency Protocols. It's a protocol that binds, that binds all the councils in London, and it is activated when the temperature is freezing with regards to the winter. And what we tend to do is prompt emergency response in order to prevent that. And usually when it's freezing in London and it's 0, definitely the SWEP will be called, or if the weather forecast will be on for the next 3 days, absolutely the SWEP will be called. And it's Pan-London, that means we all work together within the London Council and then to ensure that nobody stays on the street. And that's why we encourage people, make sure you refer everyone who we see on the street to StreetLink, because StreetLink will definitely pick it up and forward it to the local outreach teams within various councils, and then they will be able to provide that support to whoever that is sleeping rough. That's what the Pan-London, the SWEP team does. It's emergency response across London. Thank you.
Many thanks, Councillor Etty, and thank you, Kofo David, for attending this evening. You're very welcome to stay as well, obviously. Agenda item 8, questions from members of the council. The maximum time allocated for this item is 30 minutes, and I will be strictly adhering to this. Can everyone please be mindful of the time frame? Cabinet members who will be responding, please note you have up to and not exceeding 5 minutes. Please can I ask that you be as focused and succinct as possible so that we can get through as many questions as possible. After 30 minutes, any questions not answered will receive a written response. And may I remind members that any supplementary question must arise directly out of the original question or the reply and must not be a speech or a statement. In accordance with Council Procedure Rule 10.4, questions from members of the Council have been alternated between the majority and minority groups. So question 1 is from Councillor Garbett to the Mayoral Advisor for Older People and Carers. Councillor Garbett, please ask your question.
As written.
Councillor Maxwell, would you please respond? You have up to and not exceeding 5 minutes.
Sorry, Madam Speaker. I gave apologies for Councillor Maxwell earlier. I'm going to answer on her behalf.
Apologies and thank you.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And thank you, Councillor Garbett, for your question. You're quite right. It's a very important issue. Unclaimed benefits is a national problem. There's more than £15 billion of unclaimed benefits in this country every year. Shockingly, for us in Hackney, that amounts to approximately £12.3 million of unclaimed pension credit every single year. You're absolutely right in your question, Councillor Garbett. That is the highest in London, but only just. We're closely followed by Lambeth and Southwark. I think the important thing to highlight, Madam Deputy Speaker, is that it's a shared problem across the whole of London and indeed the whole of the country. In the past, the council's run a number of campaigns to encourage take-up of pension credit. This included Hackney Today articles, messaging via voluntary sector partners, mail-outs using communications provided by the Pensions Service. Obviously, the figures show that wasn't working well enough for us. We've now moved to a much better and more targeted approach. Over this last summer, link workers from the customer service team took proactive steps to speak with very many Hackney pensioners. What they found out, actually, because it was quite nuanced work, was there's some reluctance actually to accept pension credit from older people who are very proud of having managed their lives up until now without benefits. And sadly, we also found that after many years of political attacks on the welfare state, there's actually significant stigma amongst some of our older residents about actually applying for benefits. So the team worked out that there were gateway benefits that you could use to actually help people onto pension credit. So actually, if you talked about council tax reduction first, or helped people to get free TV licenses, or help them with their heating costs, then you could open up engagement and acceptance of pension credit. Leading on from the work that was done during the summer, I hope all members in this chamber now, Madam Deputy Speaker, are aware that we have launched the Money Hub 3 weeks ago. This is a team of specialist advisors who support all those in severe hardship, especially financial hardship. One of the things they're able to do is to check whether people are receiving all the benefits they're entitled to or not. This team uses the LIFT, the Low Income Family Tracker. This is a national dashboard that lets you identify which households are eligible for which benefits. And LIFT tells us that as of last month, nearly 700 households in Hackney are eligible for pension credit but have not claimed it. Those households are losing out on an average of about £300 per month each household, which is extraordinarily high, I think. Bear in mind, LIFT doesn't catch everybody. There are some eligible residents who they are not able to identify. So the Money Hub, to work properly to contact these people, we've got 3 outreach workers based in community settings, and they will be working with partners across the system to identify those 700 households plus and test what are the best ways of engaging with them. There'll be 2 sides to that work. Broad-based community outreach, where we work with community partnership network, the food network, voluntary and community sector partners, and then very specific targeted support, literally knocking at someone's door, texting them, giving them a phone call, working with organisations that we know they trust and engage with, be that their local community lunch, be it their registered social landlord or their TMO. So there's a lot of detailed work, Madam Deputy Speaker, going on to get our pensioners the credit that they deserve. I will remind Councillor Garbutt, obviously, at the end of my speech, one of the best ways, the best way to tackle poverty is to make our welfare system fairer and more generous. Remember, the Tories took away £20 per week from every resident on universal credit. That took £35 million away from the incomes of Hackney residents. And of course, whilst we were pleased here to see the Chancellor commit to uplifting benefits and pensions, which was something that Mayor Glanville had lobbied for, we know that is not enough. Madam Deputy Speaker, tackling poverty and having a fairer welfare system isn't just a safety net for people, but it's a springboard out of poverty. And we know in Hackney that that can only be delivered by a Labour government.
Thank you. Councillor Garbutt, do you have any supplementary questions?
Yeah, thank you for that really thorough response. It's really reassuring, especially on the targeted nature. I just wondered where or when this would be kind of reviewed. Is it going to, another kind of cabinet meeting, just to keep it on the agenda to make sure that we're all doing everything that we should be doing as councillors as well to support our residents?
Yeah, absolutely. The team. The Money Hub's only been up and running for 3 weeks. But yes, of course, after 6 months and a year, it'll be looking at all the work it's doing, seeing how it's working and using those metrics. And if we're not contacting enough people, then we'll go back and think about it and work out how we contact more.
Many thanks for the question. We'll move on to question 2 from Councillor Troughton to the Mayor. Councillor Troughton, please ask your question.
As set out, Madam Deputy Speaker, but in view of today's announcement, may I seek permission to ask a supplementary question now?
Afterwards, I think, but thank you.
Okay, as set out then.
Mayor Glanville, would you please respond? And you have up to and not exceeding 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I'm quite glad that Councillor Cavan isn't here to answer this question, because it's timely and obviously fantastic news from earlier today. What I think, though, it represents is what we've always said on this side of the chamber, and what I've always tried to do since 2016, is there would be a campaigning council led by campaigning councillors. And it was only the Labour Party in this borough that took action to save our buses. It was only the Labour Party that took to the streets, that petitioned, that went to Downing Street, that went to City Hall, that made representations in public and in private to save our buses. Only the Labour Party in this chamber. I didn't see anyone else doing that work. And we were heard. We had a strong evidence base from council officers. We had the community on our side, and we won. And that is the most important thing. And It was wonderful to be with the Mayor of London today, with Labour politicians from all across London to celebrate that moment of what that extra investment means. But I do just want to take us back to the start of the campaign and why this win was so important and why we stood with our residents, as we always do, for our buses. There were 11 bus routes in Hackney that were proposed by TfL to be cut or reduced in the consultation that started over the summer. With the exception of some route changes to 26, all have been saved, which is important to say. 5,000 local people signed the petition. We first went to government because at the start of this consultation, Madam Deputy Speaker, it was the government that was holding London's transport to ransom. The Tories used it as a deliberate attack on Londoners and all those that depend on these services. And that's why we had to take action. And it was the last Tory Mayor of London, former Prime Minister but two, that struck a deal that ensured that London is the only Western capital city to receive no central government revenue funding to fund its public transport system. And that's why these buses were at risk in the first place. Governments across Europe, cities across the world are thinking about public transport as a response to the climate crisis and the cost of living crisis. And what did this government do? It's put our buses to ransom. So I'm really pleased that we found that extra resource through the Mayor today to ensure the survival of these bus services. But the long-term future of TfL cannot be dependent on a Tory government. But that's why we went to Downing Street, because at the point that we went to Downing Street, there was no deal to secure TfL's long-term future. I would like to pay massive tribute to, as I said, the officers at the council that looked at the evidence base, looked at each route, suggested alternatives to TfL if cuts had had to go through. We also saw, I know on Monday night in the chamber, the SED committee led by Councillor Billington holding TfL to account and looking at ways we can do consultation better and make sure we take into account the impact on residents when those consultations take place. And I think that is an onward commitment many of us here, and I know Assembly Member Marima will take back to City Hall. We just had a discussion about private motorcycles, an important mode of transport, but I just finished. 1 in 4 of Hackney residents rely on buses. It's the most popular mode. It's overwhelmingly young people, people on low incomes, women, Black and global majority residents, and the disabled that use our buses. And that is why they're so important to us. We fought cuts every step of the way. I hope this is a return to investment in our buses. We're really committed to bus prioritisation in this borough, making sure those routes are expanded where possible, and especially in the east of the borough. And this is where I finish. Kings Park councillors know how important the T242 and the 236 are. That is why they have been so resolute in this campaign, why you raised this question in the first place. I'd just like to pay tribute to Lynn, Ali and Sharon for their tireless work on this campaign. I know other campaigning groups and wards have made a difference, but it is your victory for the 236 and the 242 and what that will mean to residents on Kingsmead, on Clapton Park, and in some of the communities that are most disconnected from other public transport. So thank you for what you did, and a great day for this borough and our buses.
Thank you, Mayor Glanville. Councillor Crowdson, I believe that you have a supplementary question.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. For how long is this reprieve guaranteed, Mr. Mayor?
I don't know the answer to that question. I think that rests in the long-term funding settlement for TfL. I know that when the announcement of the funding deal, the 2-year settlement that the Mayor of London made, Madam Deputy Speaker, that they said there would be no further bus cuts needed. If you remember the managed decline scenario, this was a 4% cut in bus capacity in London. If there had been no deal, the default position of the Tories would have been an 18% cut in bus services, and we wouldn't be celebrating a victory today. We'd be looking at further consultation and decline. So it is dependent on a return to ridership. I would argue having a Labour Mayor of London re-elected in 2014 and a Labour government after that that will invest in the public transport infrastructure of our capital city and those that depend on it. That's what we need to fight for, and that's what we need to win.
Thank you, Mayor Glanville. We move to question 3, question from Councillor Alistair Binney-Lubbock to the Mayor Advisor for Private Rented Sector and Housing Affordability.
As set out, thank you.
Thank you, Madam
Councillor
Deputy
Moana, please
Speaker.
respond.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And can I just also associate myself with Mayor Glanville's comments, and in particular, I want to pay tribute to Councillor Patrick. I know all 3 councillors have worked really hard, but I remember her talking to me about the 242 when I was first elected in 2006. So I look forward to taking the bus home with you later on today. But back to the question that Councillor Binney-Lubbock has asked me to respond. Private renters have been long on the front line of Hackney's housing crisis. Because of the government's continued and total failure to tackle the root causes of a broken housing system, they now find themselves on the front line of the cost of living crisis as well. The huge increase in the price of food, energy, and just about everything else are bad enough on their own, but the near 10% increase in average private rented sector rents this year doesn't represent a market solution to housing. Instead, it represents the opposite, Madam Speaker, another complete failure of the market to provide housing solutions. And to make these statistics real to other members here today, the average private rent in Hackney in October last month was £650 per month, compared with the average of £150 for a housing association tenant and £108 for a council tenant. In Hackney, we're committed to supporting the private rented sector and challenging rogue landlords, but we can only use these powers if we're given them by government, which is why we've always pushed for change to the changes that we want to see to make renting better in Hackney. In recent years, the government's agreed to many of our recommendations, despite many changes in said government. These include banning rogue landlords, publishing a database of rogue landlords, committing to stopping fees for tenants, and tackling the scourge of short-term lets and Airbnbs. But more still clearly needs to be done, Madam Speaker. And I'm really proud of the work that we as a council have done with tenants' organisations, including Generation Rent, London Renters Union and Hackney Citizens, who act as a critical friend, including the last few months, and hold us to account excuse me, on behalf of private tenants. So through our Better Renting campaign, Madam Speaker, we've continually done everything we can to address the unfair system in place. Recently, we've seen the benefits of this in practice. So, for example, last month, we gave 16 priced out private renters the chance to stay in the local community by moving into the latest of our Hackney Living Rent homes in our shared ward, Councillor Binney-Lubbock and Gooch House in Clapton. Through London Hackney Living Rent, we're showing what a good landlord can look like and can provide genuinely affordable homes that private renters can afford, and also make sure that those who can't access the social housing market are also provided for within our borough. And we also campaign, for example, to make sure that Hackney Living Rent is capped at 1/3 of local income by ward. So earlier in the year, a group of private renters that many of you will know, the Sumford Grove renters in Stoke Newington, Shacklewell councillors, successfully won £24,000 in rent repayment orders after taking legal action against their landlord, something that I sat through the 2-day tribunal myself, along with council officers. And they were supported by the council's private sector housing team, who investigated the property and presented evidence in court. This is just an example, and we continue to take enforcement action against any landlord as and when we find them. And last week, the government reiterated the commitment to ending no-fault evictions, Section 21, a commitment made after a long-standing council campaign alongside other housing campaigners, and working with partners such as Generation Rent and again, Hackney Citizens and others. And we will continue to push for this until the government does live up to its promise. Finally, this Labour administration is committed to expanding landlord licensing, which directly affects housing health, contributes to housing health and safety ratings in the private rented sector, and thereby contributing to making sure that homes are more energy efficient. We're looking to expand that to eventually cover the whole of the borough. The private sector housing team have rightly, however, prioritised inspections to support the Homes for Ukraine scheme and the ongoing fire and building safety concerns that affect leaseholders and tenants in the borough, alongside the fire service and local leaseholders and landlords. But we know that there is so much more to do. This month, the council has announced an additional £5 million support package to support those hit hardest by the cost of living crisis, and we'll make sure that we work hard to ensure that private renters who are struggling. We'll also continue to work on delivering our manifesto pledges to ensure better renting for private tenants. Again, those capped rents, longer tenancies, tackling empty properties, and making sure landlords provide better quality homes. So following the sad death of Awab Ishaq in Rochdale, a 2-year-old who died as a result of exposure to damp and mould, the Secretary of State, Michael Gove, has written to all local authorities, including Hackney, to report on the health and safety hazards as they affect, thank you, Madam Speaker, as they affect the private rented sector, something that I discussed with the team just this Monday. This case is why I personally, and I know many others here, do what we do, and I'm really welcome the fact you've taken this opportunity to raise this important question, and we continue as a council to support and advocate for better housing. So I shouldn't need to say it, but it is an absolute priority for Hackney residents that they are warm, secure and stable, and making sure that housing is a basic human right for those people. And I'm sure
you.
Oh, okay, great.
Thank you so much. Councillor Binny Lubbock, do you have a supplementary question?
I do, thank you, and yeah, just our thoughts go out to the family of Awab Ishaq as well, having seen similar conditions in Hackney in our own ward that have hopefully recently been addressed. Just to correct, I think you mentioned that it was £625 per month average rent. It's actually per week, so obviously that's even more and a very large amount. So just to get back to my supplementary question, you mentioned about Somerford Grove. They won, and that was a big win as well for London Renters Union. And there was obviously some good work being done by the council, and we really appreciate that. The question specifically was particularly during this crisis, which is especially acute in recent months with the cost of living crisis as well. What have you specifically been doing as the Mayor's advisor on private renting? What has your work looked like in these last couple of months? Thank you.
I apologise, Councillor Binny Lubbock, and to the other members if I said 625. It was meant to say 650 a week. But I'm sure that's an ever-changing number, but thank you for that. So in terms of the work that I've been doing, obviously, as you know, the housing portfolio reflects the complexity of the housing market here in Hackney. I work with my colleague, Councillor Sade Etty, who supports homelessness and housing need, and obviously that's the main priority for people in temporary accommodation. They are the main people that are affected by the cost of living crisis. Really, we continue to push to make sure that housing benefits are able to meet a higher proportion of the private rented sector here in Hackney. We have discussed in this chamber in the past, before you joined the council, that on the existing housing benefit levels that we have, only 97% of the borough is affordable to somebody in receipt of housing benefit, and that's an ever-increasing gap. So we continue to, I continue to work with colleagues in the cabinet to make sure that that is pushed and that is shared with civil servants and with the Secretary of State. I've mentioned already the fund that's been made available in the last few weeks for people that are struggling with the cost of living, and as part of the work that I've been doing with officers to ensure that we support tenants on low to middle incomes, I'm really trying to make sure that we have more advice and support for those people.
Just 1 minute.
Thank you. I think one of the difficulties of the last few years in particular is that people that have never thought themselves to be within the scope of the welfare support system have been brought into it as a result of COVID, and really supporting those tenants to make sure that they're able to access or increase the amount of work and salary and income that they are able to generate for their households has been a really, really key one. But if you do have any suggestions for things that we could be doing, I'd be very happy to hear them. I would say that some of the campaigning that we do, which is a large chunk of what I do, is around allowing additional powers for councils like ours to take action on behalf of tenants. At the moment, they fall between the cracks, even though they are 40% of the council's residents. Thank you again.
Thank you both for the questions. Number 4, question 4 from Councillor Patrick to the Cabinet Member for Finance, Insourcing and Customer Service. Councillor Patrick, please. As set up, thank you. I understand that in Councillor Chapman's absence, the Mayor will respond. Mayor Glanville, you have up to and not exceeding 5 minutes, please.
I think it's Councillor.
Yeah, actually, I'm going to
Woodley.
respond if that's okay, Madam Deputy Speaker.
Yes.
And apologies again from Councillor Chapman for absence due to illness.
I'm sure you, Councillor Patrick, and everyone gathered here this evening will join me in wishing him a speedy recovery. As you can imagine, concerns about health and well-being weigh heavily with us this winter. We continue to see COVID cases, long COVID cases, and the wider impacts of the disruption to our lives that was brought by the pandemic. At a time where we want to focus on recovery, we instead find that the rising cost of living is pushing more people into poverty. As Councillor Patrick has set out in her question, Hackney residents are in danger of struggling. In fact, I think it'll be hard to find anyone in Hackney who is not feeling the impact now or in the months to come on their rents, mortgage rates, food, energy and household bills, and on their friends, family, colleagues, and the children and young people they care for and educate. Unless we see the council, local communities, partners and the government step in, and if only it was a Labour government, Councillor Kennedy, the cost of living crisis will not only make poverty worse in Hackney, but also push people that are already in poverty into destitution. All this to say that the impacts of poverty and how could it get worse this winter are far more wide-ranging than the pandemic. But the support we're securing from central government is much more limited. We do welcome the Household Support Fund grant and the confirmation in the autumn budget statement that this will continue into the next financial year. But this does not go far when you have more than 30,000 households in poverty, and they have less in their pockets than even this time last month because of inflation and interest rates. As you know, our local response builds on the solid work undertaken over the last 4 years as part of the Council's poverty reduction framework, a priority of the last administration. We kept much of this work going because we knew the pandemic would have a knock-on effect on people's lives, but we didn't know that new global events would deepen the crisis. We're now using every spare bit of resource we have to provide support to those most in need, but we're also coordinating between others to make the most of every bit of support available, bringing organisations together to maximise our efforts. For example, the local NHS is funding some of our work to maximise people's incomes, which essentially means helping them to access benefits they might not know they're entitled to, or might indeed need a bit of support in claiming it and feeling dignity in that process, as Councillor Kennedy set out. And we continue to circulate our Help at Hand booklet to show people the different options of help on offer. As you've heard, we've set up a Money Hub, a new team of specialist advisors who will support those in severe hardship who have no other source of monetary support available. That's an £800,000 support package with £600,000 of council funding and an initial £200,000 from the household support. We're offering targeted support to residents we know are in need, and this is through the Household Support Fund, which will come to a total this year of £5.6 million. But assuming a third of Hackney households are in poverty, this is just £160 per household. It will not go very far. We also need to continue offering energy support, and Hackney's energy advice contractor, the London Energy Savings Squad, has agreed to hold energy advice drop-in sessions at designated hubs across the borough, and we continue to embed support into the work of children and education through the Holiday Activity Fund, by offering vouchers for fresh fruit and vegetables in children's centres, but we know we need to do more. As Deputy Mayor Bramble set out in our last meeting of full council, we pledged to establish a task force to review food poverty affecting children in schools. I also want to credit the Children and Young People Scrutiny Commission chairs and members who held a focused session exploring the context for free school meals provided by some of our Hackney schools and informed by groups like Chefs in Schools with incredibly inspiring testimonies. Not only talking about the difference that access to healthy food can make to children, but also about the redirection of some of their staff's work into ensuring that families are claiming the benefits that they're entitled to. There are children who are entitled to free school meals and are not claiming. And once you tap into that, you realise there are other benefits as well. And that work by the already very pressured administrative staff in schools and settings can be actually life-changing. We must continue to work on supporting our community partners. We've secured £95,000 from the NHS to shore up support over winter, purchasing food and helping with the volunteer drive. We've also increased the share of our grant funding for advice centres to do their vital work to the tune of £1 million. We'll continue to help organisations raise funding and have committed to funding organisations that demonstrate their reach to residents through our community infrastructure grants. We've designated libraries as warm hubs. We've launched £300,000 community energy fund, so local organisations can do their bit to install new clean energy. And we've worked with the GLA to bring the debt-free bus to Ridley Road on the 2nd and 3rd of December, to Hopson Market on the 10th of December, with further slots to follow in Narroway, Broadway Market, Chatsworth Road. In summary, this is a whole system plan, Madam Speaker, by which I mean that the work in these individual areas can only succeed if it's coordinated with partners across the council and across the whole borough. Thank you.
Thank you. And I believe there's a supplementary question.
Thank you.
I'd like to express hope that Councillor Chapman gets well soon. We miss him here tonight. But that was a very excellent answer, Councillor Woodley. Perhaps you can expand on your answer and give me some advice, or Councillor some advice, about what we can do to support our residents in the campaigns that the Council's running, and let them know what assistance is available to them at this very difficult time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patrick. I think this is when the knowledge that councillors like yourselves have of your local wards, the local community organisations, your estates, your residents, and the needs that they have really comes into its own. We've been holding roving surgeries, taking this booklet out, where not only are we able to give advice to families on the doorstep who need them, we're also picking up people who want to help and volunteers. And what we're finding is in each of the neighbourhoods across the borough, there are organisations set up to receive that help. And again, I'm looking across at Councillor Walker and the work with Clapton Commons, who I think are going to launch a welcome hub at the end of this month. And I think you will find a hub like that in every part of this borough. And certainly Councillor Chapman, Councillor Williams, Councillor Kennedy, myself, the Mayor, are all gathering that information. This booklet will be updated. There'll be another one that is produced, and we'll make sure it's circulated across the borough to get up-to-date information out there. And I think, yeah, just let's keep going out there, knocking on doors, using the information you have, the contacts you have, the networks you have. We are out on the ground. We are out meeting people. We know where the need is. This is when we can make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you. We've now reached the end of the 30-minute allocated timeframe. I'd like to thank members who have submitted questions. Those members whose questions were unable to be answered due to insufficient time will receive a written response. So we'll move now to agenda item 9, the elected mayor's statement. Mayor Glanville, would you like to make your statement to the council? You have up to and not exceeding 10 minutes to address the council, following which the opposition group will have an opportunity to respond should they wish to do so, and they will have up to 5 minutes each. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and it's wonderful to see you in the chair tonight. Last week, as many of you will know, councillors and council staff took a moment to recognise Transgender Awareness Week and Transgender Day of Remembrance. And I think when we did that and stood on the town hall steps, I don't think, even though we're acting in solidarity, that any of us would know how pertinent and poignant that moment would become. So we were there to stand in solidarity with our transgender and non-binary residents, who we all know continue to face discrimination on an almost daily basis. And Trans Day of Remembrance is an important day because we're honouring the lives of trans residents who have been taken from us through violence all too soon. We're really clear, and I think Councillor Williams has been really clear in her leadership of this portfolio, that Hackney has always been an opening and welcoming borough that celebrates diversity, and that these values of solidarity extend to our trans community and our trans staff. We took that photo midweek to tweet on Sunday, which is that Day of Remembrance, but on Saturday night, in Colorado Springs, we saw that deadly attack on Club Q. 5 people were killed: Kelly Loving, Daniel Ashton, Derek Runt, Ashley Powell, and Raymond Green. 25 people injured, including trans people attacked for simply who they want to be. And I think, having discussed this with colleagues from the Green Party this evening and others, it's just so important that while these were not people known to us or community known to us, we recognised how this attack has heightened the sense of insecurity, not just of trans people globally, but the LGBTQI+ community. And while the examples, I think, from America are extreme, we cannot turn a blind eye to the rising cases of hate here at home and the toxic debates that rage online, fueling further hate. We also know that these impact on other communities as well, and I think it was deeply gratifying that the perpetrator of a series of toxic anti-Semitic attacks brought from outside of Hackney was finally brought to justice in recent weeks for those attacks in Stamford Hill. I also, though, reflect on the World Cup taking place in Qatar, and I'm taking part in a debate tomorrow, that for many people globally, they are still seen as a community that is banned, criminalised, and faces the death penalty in parts of the world. And I think that's why the small symbols of solidarity that we show here in Hackney are so important. And I do believe, and I have not watched a single World Cup match, it was the wrong decision to bring the World Cup to Qatar, and there is a real sense of shame on FIFA for doing so. So I think we'll continue that conversation. We will continue our work. We will make people feel welcome, and we will stand with those wherever they are in the world that are killed for simply who they are. Echo, Madam Speaker, your warm words about Remembrance Day. That was a really important moment, and I think that fear we had at the council that because of COVID we would lose that collective moment of remembrance and somehow the parade and the service would not recover to the way it was firmly rebutted that Sunday. It was probably the biggest Remembrance Sunday I have seen, and the cadets that took part, young Hackney cadets, one of whom, police cadets, is now training to be an actual police officer from Hackney, and I think a powerful example of how we can change those organisations from within. I also had the privilege of joining Councillor Desmond this Sunday at the Association of Jewish Ex-Service Personnel March at the Cenotaph with communities from across London and the UK. And just an incredibly powerful and poignant moment of the contribution of Jewish ex-service people, not just in the 2 world wars, but since. And also Martin Sugarman, who is an activist here in Hackney, who ensured that the recognition for Operation Mincemeat and other notable actors in the Second World War in the Jewish community, he was awarded an award at the ceremony just before the march. Madam Deputy Speaker, I don't think, and Councillor Marima has already touched on this, that we could gather here today and not reflect on the tragic case of Awad Ishaq, who died aged just 2 years old from a respiratory condition caused by chronic exposure to mould in his family home. I'm sure every member was heartbroken and angry at that news, and I'm sure they want to join me in sending our thoughts to his family. He had a whole life taken away from him by housing conditions that should be long past in this country. No one in 21st century Britain should be living in conditions that Awad's family faced. And as one of the largest social landlords in the country, I want to assure everyone living in one of our council homes that tackling damp and mould is something that we take extremely seriously. It has been almost from that day at the forefront of my discussions with Cabinet colleagues such as Councillor Mackenzie, Councillor Etty and Councillor Marima, as well as senior officers from across the council. And I'd like to thank all 3 of them and the senior council officers that have led our response. I also know from discussions in this chamber, our own casework, our door knocking, that in the past our response to some cases of damp and mould may not have met our standards. I want to apologise and I want to reassure everyone that we will redouble our efforts. It is easy to point to the impact of ongoing cuts, the cyber attack, COVID-19, to say that it is more difficult for us to complete some of the work that is needed. But there can be no excuses for not taking action. We will not let these challenges stand in the way of our response or ensuring that all our tenants have a safe, warm and decent place to call home, just as we pledged in our manifesto. I want to be clear tonight, Madam Deputy Speaker, the steps that we will take to build on these foundations. So over the next few months, we will deliver a service that prioritises and inspects all reports of damp and mould as quickly as possible, with the aim of the majority of all cases to be inspected within 5 working days of being reported to us. We'll take action into account the health needs of anyone in the home and their vulnerabilities. Where damp and mould is caused by a leak, our ambition is that all reports of a leak will be responded to within 24 hours. Next year, we will be undertaking a full stock condition survey and include specific assessments of damp and mould across all of our council stock. We will also ensure that we fully assess blocks more likely to suffer from damp and mould, work proactively with residents to identify cases early and prevent cases from happening in the first place, and there will be a campaign around damp and mould that we will launch. The council has already contacted all our housing associations operating in Hackney to inform us of the specific actions that they're taking to address the issue of mould within their stock. And later this week, with Cabinet colleagues, I'll be writing to get further reassurance from those housing associations, and we will make damp and mould part of our regular engagement and accountability going forward, and we'll be deliberate in our engagement on the issue of damp and mould within the sector. And I know that some of the very best housing associations are already writing back and talking about what they're doing to address those issues in their stock. We'll be working with our TMOs, those tenant management organisations that manage many of our estates, a third of our stock, to ensure that we have a joined up and clear standard response for tackling damp and mould, and that no cases will fall between the gap between their responsibilities and us as a council. We will proactively engage with the tenant and resident association movement and campaigners, as well as use resident liaison group alongside ward councillors to share knowledge of problem areas and blocks and take action. This programme includes upgrades as well to temporary accommodation that we own, working with landlords to secure long-term leases and refurbishment of privately provided temporary accommodation as well. Madam Deputy Speaker, this focus will take place alongside our ambition to improve the service we give all tenants. We've already heard some of these ambitions from Councillor Mackenzie. We would have heard more if he'd been able to give his response on the resident engagement strategy. But over the past year, he has led, with colleagues in the housing service, a real review of how performance is operated and how we get back on track after the pandemic, tackling the COVID-19 and cyber backlog, looking at call waiting times and the standard of repairs. The action that is taking place has included increasing the resources within our direct labour organisation, and that is the labour organisation that we run in-house, including the number of operatives by 14 new repair officers, and there's another 15 on the way. In-source services serving in-sourced stock. We will commit to ensuring decent homes for all tenants of 34,000 private rented properties across the borough as well. And you heard the leadership that Councillor Marima has shown, where we are going to prioritise this within our private rented team. And she was being too modest. We've made a commitment to increase the resources that we spend on the private rented sector every single year of this administration, and we will ensure that happens as part of the Better Renting campaign, and that we look forward to using the stock condition survey work of our own properties and that intensive survey work in our housing strategy and taking forward. I could mention the 14 housing ministers in the last 12 years, the 4-year forced rent reductions, the attacks on the social rent cap, as Councillor Kennedy talked about. All of these things have an impact on our budget and the lives of residents in our housing stock, but that will be no excuse, Madam Deputy Speaker, for taking action. I will just finish on a celebratory tone around the London Living Wage. 2 weeks ago, it was London Living Wage Week, and it is a real milestone that we sailed through the 200 businesses and organisations that have now signed up to be living wage employers in Hackney. One of the best ways to tackle the cost of living crisis is to tackle poor pay and conditions, and the living wage is an absolute key tool. In 2016, when I was elected, 9 organisations in this borough paid the London Living Wage. It's now 205. The council is a London Living Wage employer.
Thank you.
Clap time included, but Madam Deputy Speaker, we will not stop there. 205 is a great milestone, but we will become a London Living Wage place, led by Councillor Williams. We will ensure that through everything that we do, we drive up and drive out poor quality pay and conditions in our borough. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does someone from the Conservative group wish to respond?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As long as I'll be allowed to talk, I'll talk until the motion gets moved. I shouldn't be allowed to talk anymore. I would like to first of all congratulate the Mayor on what he's actually, I think it's one of the first times where actually that apology and everything for the residents, how sincere you were about things that have gone wrong, which is great to hear. And obviously, you know, things have to be changed. I'm going to start with, it was very interesting today in the minutes of the council meeting, and I'm glad that it's actually recorded, because it was interesting to see a difference of 2 chief whips, how they react when somebody wants to know what's going on in minutes, where one chief whip is trying to find out things and another chief whip is trying to silence the opposition. And not only that, Councillor Papi wasn't allowed to talk at all about the accuracy of the minutes, which, to be honest, you expect us to take part in debates, and yet you shy away from it when we actually do debate. And I don't think it's right that we've been going on for months and months about a few technical things. You know, you have apologized for very important things, but these are things.
Councillor Steinberger, can you please
happening.
respond to the Mayor's statement?
Yeah. So basically, I think it's an utter disgrace on how it works here. I would like to also congratulate the Republicans in America of winning the House of Representatives. And I'd also like to congratulate Bibi Netanyahu on finally coming back for the fifth or sixth time, is it? I must say, I particularly, you know, for me, I don't vote either party, and I don't have a right to vote. It was interesting, the Mayor, what you said, that with the World Cup, that you didn't really watch anything. I'm a little bit like you in a way, a little bit lost. But if England were to win, wouldn't it do good for the country? Don't you think we should be, like, you know, really egging on England? Although I must say my biggest disappointment was yesterday when Lewandowski missed the penalty. So I do share that it would be great if England win, but I was disappointed with Lewandowski. I would like to just run through a few little things. I was honored and proud, together with my colleague, to be invited in Mayor Street to open up a brand new shop, to cut the ribbon. And it was great to see that the whole people in Hackney know us from all angles. That was very good. I also was in J-Trade, which is the biggest Jewish exhibition in in America. Is the only other place where I think they do it, where we met thousands of different people from different angles, and obviously different people from different businesses who were there to try and up their businesses. Obviously, I came as a Hackney councillor because it's important for us to see local businesses doing well. And I must say that throughout this exhibition was probably a few thousand people attended. And I would like to finally finish off with just a few little things, which is, I mentioned it last time, but it was very vague. It wasn't picked up on about Brownlow Road already over 2 years, probably 3 years. It came to the council and still nothing's going on there. I would like the Mayor please to look at that. And like I said, on this side, always we are Conservatives, but we do not agree on housing benefit cuts. And I've said it all along, and will say it the whole time, that in fact, we did speak to Rishi because we are close with Rishi. And I do think there is a change in the housing benefits this year.
1 minute, Councillor
How it's going to
Steinberger.
work. And we do encourage the government to obviously to bring up the housing benefits allowance. Madam Speaker, I must finish off by saying I think I've heard you more than I've heard myself in the last 5 minutes. And I would ask, please, as opposition, to be given a little bit more respect. You know, if we're not allowed to talk, then we might as well just shut shop. And I think I'll finish off with that because I'm looking forward. You're going to be a speaker whole year, so it's a good chance to tell you now that I think, you know, we're also elected officials. So I think we should be given our time to talk. Thank you very much.
Noted. Councillor Garbutt, do you wish to respond?
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I'd just like to reflect a bit on the wonderful beginning of this evening's meeting. I know it feels like quite a long time ago now, but for the Mayor's Civic Awards, to hear about all the brilliant work that's going on in Hackney from lots of incredible people and organisations. And as this is the first in-person awards since the pandemic, I would like to, just changing tone, to take this opportunity to acknowledge the civic leaders, organisers, activists and volunteers that we've lost through the pandemic and since lockdowns. I'd like to give a special mention to Joanna Roberts, MBE, whose funeral Councillor Billy Lubbock attended today. Joanna was a long-standing volunteer at Benthall School in Hackney Downs Ward, and she was active there when Councillor Billy Lubbock began school there back in the late 1980s, and she continued volunteering there long after and into her 90s, instilling into pupils a creative spirit, love of nature and love of reading. And just to go on to some of the moments in the Mayor's speech, so we do welcome the progress on the London living wage and paying conditions, but there still is lots to do. This evening we joined Unison, library staff and residents demonstrating on the Town Hall steps to voice a continued dissatisfaction with the proposed changes to library staffing There is still time to listen to them and to halt the consultation until the new library strategy is embedded. And as we know, workers are balloting to strike and taking strike action in Hackney and across the country, including the historical first ever nurses strike action, as well as ongoing rail and post worker strikes. All of these people provide essential services and need their pay to reflect inflation and value of their work. And it's great to see the council's Money Hub launch at the beginning of the month. And thank you again to Councillor Kennedy for describing the work that's been done around targeting the work to increase pension credit uptake. And a huge thank you to all the officers working on that to make the Money Hub the most accessible it can be so people take up these benefits. And just to reflect again on the tragic death of Awad Ishaq, who died in 2020, 8 days after his second birthday in Rochdale, we do welcome the action being taken and the work described by Mayor Glanville of officers to focus on damp and mould, and we must continue to improve the conditions of our home. And I'm really glad to be part of the Living in Hackney Scrutiny Commission that's going to be looking at disrepair and housing at our next meeting, and we're encouraging residents to speak up about disrepair so that can be at the heart of that meeting. I'd just like to reflect again that I'm really saddened by the death at Stoke Newington Police Station at the beginning of November, and how outrage and distrust has filled a vacuum where there's still unanswered questions. The Mayor and I discussed this recently, and he shares my concerns about needing more information about the actions taken by the police during the day when the person was seeking care. And we've called to understand what care and resource was provided to this person. And just to continue a very kind of dark note, I really welcome the Mayor's statement and solidarity regarding trans rights and the appalling murderous attack on Club Q. This hate crime outlines the dangerous lives that people live being members of the LGBTIQA+ community. This is why the sports washing of Qatar's treatment of LGBTIQA+ people is so dangerous and indicative of a global trend towards fascism. It is so important to join LGBTIQA+ staff, councillors, cabinet members and allies on the town steps to mark Trans Day of Remembrance, a day to remember lives lost to violence and hatred. We did appreciate the Conservative mayoral candidates' supportive position on trans rights in the election earlier this year, but sadly this is not reflected nationally in the Conservative government. And I'd really like it if you're able to speak to Rishi about this, because the threats to rolling back trans rights, endorsing conversion therapy for trans people and blocking Gender Recognition Act reforms is appalling, and we implore that you listen to and fight for LGBTIQA+ residents and staff. In Hackney, it's humbling to see councils, organisations, residents to continue to fight for refugees and to be as welcoming as possible to all refugees from all corners of the world, this being recognised in the civic awards this evening.
1 minute, please.
We need to challenge the hostile environment to ensure that Hackney, London, our country and across the world, we are open and welcoming. Our words are as important as our actions. And we note that in the strategic plan and a recent audit report, they imply that refugees are a source of pressure on our housing system. People are not causing pressure on our housing system. A lack of affordable good housing is, and systemic causes of displacement are. Tomorrow we mark the 1 year anniversary of the shipwreck in the Channel that killed 27 migrants who were trying to reach England simply to build better lives, denied safe routes due to fascist thinking and racist policies. No human is illegal. We urgently need to commit to safe routes and to take care of displaced people. And just to finally add just a positive note at the end, we really are thankful to all of the staff who's been really supportive and flexible in our first 6 months of being elected. It's been great to get our ward forums back up and running, to hold regular surgeries, and just thank you to all your support through the kind of scrutiny commission responding to our questions. And also a huge thanks to fellow councillors, new and long-standing, who've been collegiate and given us useful advice and pointers. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Garbutt. Is it a point of order?
Yeah, it may not fall under that, but I'm slightly perplexed by the tone of the questioning, not just to the Mayor, but to you, Madam Deputy Speaker, from from the councillor on this side, Councillor Steinberger. And I just wondered if you might be able to give us some guidance on not just the content, but the way in which we conduct ourselves here. It just felt very, very unnecessarily aggressive when it was simply you managing this meeting to make sure that we can all participate and have responses given.
I do appreciate that, thank you. we're all asked to conduct ourselves in an orderly manner, and there are standards within this community, within this chamber, that we should all be adhering to, and one of them is politeness to each other. So noted, and thank you. Mayor Glanville, would you like to exercise your right of reply? And you have up to 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I will start with Councillor Scarbitt and just echo her poignant tribute on behalf of Councillor Vinnie Lubbock to Joanna Roberts and Benthall School. I didn't know that, and it must have been a really difficult day. And I know what a warm community Benthall School is, having visited there over the summer for Bike Around the Borough, but it's an incredible place. I wish I'd gone to school there, but sadly I didn't, but it is a wonderful school. Turning to libraries, I think we've been really clear, haven't we, Councillor Kennedy, about listening. There's a process to continue the conversation with trade unions even after the formal consultation, but a view has been taken that extending the consultation, given the deep engagement and uncertainty of the workforce, would not be the right decision to do. But the listening, the reflection, and the work that officers are doing to respond is definitely there, and I'm sure that people will see that response in the consultation response when it comes. We didn't get to 8.7, Madam Deputy Speaker, which was a question to Councillor Williams on the pay settlement. And I think it's just really important that when it comes to the vast majority of our Green Book staff, they were paid in payroll the uplift agreed by the National Pay Settlement. I'm really pleased that the trades and craft staff under the Red Book will get that similar pay increase in time for Christmas on the 15th of December. We were part of obviously the national pay process, but both Councillor Williams and I and officers really keen to make sure that it was a fair settlement, that it was implemented as quickly as possible. And I think that sits alongside our living wage commitments. I popped into the Money Hub this afternoon, and it's just really gratifying to see how that team is coming together. And how it's being recruiting to benefit specialists. It's going to be a new disability benefit specialist hired, the outreach work, how it's bringing together all parts of the council, and then it wants to become outward looking. And I think we can see the level of need, with over 800 people have already submitted applications. And what we need to do is make sure we continue to support and invest it, so it not only responds to those external applications, but also it can do the outreach and the data-led work we want to see around income maximisation. I may be the only person in the room that has been out in the gay community of Colorado Springs, and it was just that horrific thought that it was a place that I'd been to, and the sense of attack on one is an attack on all. And if you can be murdered for being a trans man or woman, as people were, and the people that responded to the attack, then that identity needs to be protected. And I think that goes to the heart of Councillor Garbutt's comments and how we feel in this chamber. And I think where the spirit of what we were saying about Qatar is so vital. And it isn't just the LGBT community in Qatar, it's the 6,500 estimated slave labour people that died in the construction of the stadiums. It's the continued abuse and human rights there. It just should be incompatible with a major festival of sport that we would all wish to get behind. And clearly, if Wales or England win, it will be an uplifting moment, but it will always be tarnished. And I'd like to pay tribute to Alex Scott, the BBC journalist, who still wore that armband and showed that one love does matter. And regretfully, I've heard nothing from the Conservative Party in this chamber recognising any of those issues in response. I do recognise, though, that you have stood on housing benefit and there has been a small uplift by the government, but it is nowhere near enough. And inflation continues to outpace even salaries and benefit rises. And we will continue on this side of the chamber to campaign on those issues. I felt the
1 minute, please.
The echo of Councillor Odds in the chamber from Councillor Steinberger. Not as stylish, not as extinct, but supporting the Republicans and their hate-fueled takeover of the House of Representatives, I think is beneath even the Conservative Party. And it is just one step on the journey, Councillor Steinberger, of probably joining Harvey and wishing that Mr. Trump comes back. I noticed your tone on the apology. I do just think, though, that Councillor Adams could give you some lessons on being a chief whip. Because what I've noticed in the 6 months that we've been elected under the new administration, the Conservatives have tabled not one question in this chamber. Not one question. The part of the agenda where you hold the administration to account, you're very, very hot on the minutes, not one single question tabled. Councillor Adams spends almost the entire month making sure that Labour members get their questions tabled and that their residents are represented. The Green Party have been in the chamber and done more in 6 months than you've done in 10 years, frankly. And that is all in the minutes, Councillor Steinberger. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Glanville. I think we'll choose this moment to move on to agenda item 10, the strategic plan. Mayor Glanville, I invite you to introduce the report. You'll have 5 minutes to do so, following which members will have the opportunity to debate the report. A total of 20 minutes has been allocated to this agenda item. Thank you.
Yeah, I might not have done that to my voice if I'd fully prepared, Madam Deputy Speaker. This is one of the most important documents that we could be considering. It sets out the direction of the administration, the council and our borough for the next 4 years. It is only possible because of the hard work of council officers in coming up with a strategic response to the Labour administration's manifesto. And I'd like to pay a massive tribute to Sonia Khan, who leads policy and strategy for the council as the head of that service, of not only her personal time and commitment to this document, but this document doesn't even begin to describe the engagement internally and externally that her and her team have led with Cabinet, with senior officers on our behalf. And I pay huge tribute. I'm not the easiest person to work with in a track changes document, but what she has done and how she's reflected every nuance, every thought and every priority is really important, I think, in what this document represents. I'd also like to thank Deputy Mayor Nicholson and Deputy Mayor Bramble, who's not here, both of them leading this work alongside Cabinet and ensuring that we're ready for the delivery of an ambitious manifesto and strategic plan. Colleagues will recall that we had a corporate plan in 2018, and it would have been very easy to come back with a corporate plan response to the manifesto this administration. But actually it goes beyond us as a corporate organisational identity, what we want to achieve, and what I hope that as Mayor that I will be doing over the next 4 years alongside the Cabinet. So a strategic plan that, yes, has those organisational references. So it is built on our staff values, which are inclusion, being pioneering, being proactive, open, ambitious and proud. Those were created values by our staff. It sits alongside a commitment to organisational change that will be led by the head of the paid service. It pulls in a refreshed mayoral set of priorities, and then it speaks to the wider borough and what we're trying to achieve. And the clue is in the title, Working Together for a Better Hackney. And that is why a strategic plan that sets out our ambitions, sets out the challenges Hackney faces, how we'll respond and what we'll do over the next 4 years is so important. And having it here at full council, owned by full council, is also really important, because in a mayoral system, in a cabinet system, there aren't always that moment to influence strategic priorities. And we will be coming back to this plan at our annual meeting to show what we have done and how we have delivered. And while that civic moment when we elect a new speaker is incredibly important that it's collegiate, I think it is also a state of the borough moment where we can reflect on how we are going to deliver. So it does firmly reflect my and our priorities for the new term and the manifesto commitments of the newly elected administration. It's a good 6-month reminder. It has taken 6 months to get this right and to do that outward engagement, Madam Deputy Speaker. And it has also had to track what is one of the most difficult times that this country has faced, and it has got worse, obviously. We knew when we were developing our manifesto towards the end, the war in Ukraine had started, the embryonic cost of living crisis is reflected in our work around poverty reduction, but none of us could have imagined where we would be at the time of adoption, or the Truss government well, whatever they were trying to do. It made the situation 10 times worse. We were also really reflective of the pandemic and how it exposed the deep inequalities, and how the poverty reduction framework, the health and well-being strategy, how these plans, how that work and co-production should be reflected in the strategic plan. The tone and the apology that I've always made around the cyber attack and rebuilding trust is central to the strategic plan. And we operate very, very sadly after 12 years of Tory austerity with more to come. And so we've been really conscious. And I think if if Councillor Chapman was here, he would want us to be really conscious of the financial envelope in which we operate in. And the impact of inflation and interest rates really does have an impact on our ambition. Brexit has impacted our economy. The hostile environment impacts, as we've talked about tonight.
1 minute,
and
please.
Systemic racism is a huge part of what we want to do to respond. What you'll see, though, I think, across it is that we are proud of our values, we're outward looking, we're ambitious, we're committed to tackling we're committed to being anti-racist and tackling injustice. We're also really proud of public services and our staff, and we'll continue to invest in them. I'm just going to pick out the mayoral priorities and a succinct version of them to close. I think they pull together all of these different themes, and they've been refreshed. The first is working together for a fair and safer Hackney. So it's tackling inequality, leading on anti-racism, building those desperately needed 1,000 council homes, and more on that on the 12th of December, creating pathways into jobs and building an inclusive local economy. It's working together for greener and healthier Hackney. And we had the CAP at the last meeting, that's firmly embedded here, but it's also about transforming adult social care, tackling physical and mental health inequalities, giving voice to older and disabled residents, and continuing that tradition of a Labour-run Hackney Council, which is both green, insourcing, and committed to social justice. The final one is working together for every child in Hackney, and that is working to ensure every child and young person in Hackney has the best start in life, tackling the scourge of child poverty, as we've heard from Councillor Woodley, making our education system more inclusive, high-performing, and a real commitment to keeping our children safe. I'll stop there, Madam Deputy Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you. Would members like to debate the report? We have approximately 15 minutes. Councillor Garbutt, any others? Vinnie Lovett? That's it. Thank you very much. Councillor Garbutt.
Thank you. Really welcome that presentation and understanding of the strategic direction. I've got two questions, which I'll ask if no one else is going to raise any. So I know that addressing violence against women and girls is incredibly important to you and Councillor Vajana Thomas, and this has been reflected in the recent strategy, but I couldn't see this in the strategic document. So I just wanted reassurance that this is core to the administration is trying to achieve in this strategy. And a separate question, I did really welcome the content on community wealth building, something that we've spoken about before, and just wanted to know what specific actions are being taken to build community wealth and how you're ensuring that these actions make a difference in those parts of the borough that with the least investment and higher levels of economic exclusion. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll go straight to your question, please, Vinnie Lovett.
Thank you. I've just two questions which relate to the strategic priority for a greener, healthier Hackney. First, with the pension fund aiming to reach net zero later than the council's 2030 target, how is the council's climate action plan working to balance this? And secondly, do you recognise the impact of public space advertising on these goals, specifically ones that encourage the consumption of products and services that have a hugely negative impact on the climate, such as sports utility vehicles and flights, and on wider public health, such as alcohol, gambling and junk food?
If there are no further questions, then if the Mayor can respond. Is there one further question, Councillor Vinnie
If there's none other in the room, just one which we were wondering, what kind of consultation was undertaken with residents to help shape this plan? The plan mentions partners. Who are they and how does that process work? Thank you.
Thank you. You can respond.
Thank you. I don't know if any cabinet colleagues want to dive in a second before I do this.
Apologies that it hadn't seen you. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Nicholson, thank you.
Okay, sorry, thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Sorry, I was getting confused too. I thought I may be interrupting the Mayor just as he was about to launch. Yeah, so thank you. What I just wanted to kind of really highlight and just sort of add to what it is that the Mayor kind of produced as part of his introduction, and also just to pick up on the kind of question around partners and partnership. It's absolutely right. The only way going forward, and the crisis that actually as a council we face, the real challenge and conundrum about a lack of funding, a lack of support from central government, a lack of even enabling support from central government, means that we have to consolidate with our public sector partners in the borough, whatever service it is that they may be delivering. Partnership for the next 4 years to deliver on our manifesto is absolutely vital, but it doesn't just stop with the public sector. Earlier, we heard about the London Living Wage, Madam Deputy Speaker, and over 200 organisations and local businesses now in our borough have risen to that challenge and are delivering on that commitment. It is a partnership with local businesses as much as it is a partnership with our local voluntary and community sector to enable the delivery of this extraordinarily ambitious strategic plan. And I just wanted to take this as an opportunity to emphasise that partnership and the extent by which it will go forward. And please be reassured, and all councillors should be reassured by this, is that led by the council, those partners have been contributing already to this plan, the plan that you see before you this evening. So already that dialogue and that relationship building and that focus on delivery is now already underway. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker.
Many thanks. I think that over to you then, Mayor Philip Glanville, to respond.
Thanks very much, and thank you for the questions, Councillor Garbutt and Councillor Binny Lubbock. Again, an opportunity for the Conservative Party to be involved in the debate, which they have decided not to take, despite being concerned about their voice in the chamber. Starting with the violence against women and girls, the strategy we've just adopted shows our commitment. So I think it was the last but one cabinet meeting. We're about to launch our campaign on the 16 days on Friday. I'm sure all of us will be committing to that. I'm sure Councillor Fajana Thomas will ensure that it comes alive within the strategic plan and the work going forward. In terms of the consultation with residents, I don't want to be flippant. The consultation was in the election in May when the residents of Hackney voted for me to be their mayor and all of these Labour councillors to be elected. That is at the heart of the strategic plan. Each individual element, though, as we saw with the Climate Action Plan, will be subject to the together element and the co-production, making sure that everything that we do, whether we're changing a service, whether we're developing new strategies, that they're truly co-produced. And I think you can see that with the SEND strategy that came to Cabinet on Monday evening, a really intensive piece of work within and without the council, involving parents and schools and getting involved. Those principles, everything that we deliver coming from the plan will be consulted on. But we felt that the best thing, as Council Deputy Mayor Nicholson said, was to really talk to our statutory and voluntary sector partners about the strategic plan and make sure that kind of political steer, that values-driven work was sort of understood and show that leadership. So they've been able to influence and see what their role might be in co-delivery. In terms of community wealth building, one part of what I'm really proud of, I'm not just a Labour mayor, I'm a co-op mayor. And the co-op values that we've embedded in the manifesto and in critical parts of the strategic plan, I think go to the heart of community wealth building in the borough. We have a new champion in Councillor Palace, who's the Inclusive Business, Social Enterprise and Co-ops champion. He was at CLES conference, I think, this week, Cooperative Innovation Network conference next week, really breathing life into those partnerships that we've built with those organisations, and we talked at Cabinet, I think, about joining the Cooperative Innovation Network. Really concrete examples, though, is around the Community Energy Fund that we've recently launched. I think we're looking forward to how we adjust our business relationships and bring those in. It's Hackney Business Network's 10th anniversary next year, how we deliver on those partnerships. And another really vivid example this week was our Diversity and Tech Commission launch yesterday, which is from the council, but seeking to really influence how local employers, especially in the creative and tech industries, look to the talent in our borough, unlock it, recruit it, become better organisations and build community wealth. Again, moving away from entry-level jobs, moving away from a low skills economy to a high skills economy, but recognising the talent that our residents already have and seeking to unlock it. And I think the partnerships from Amazon down to small SMEs that have grown out of here, East and Brexel, led by some really impressive Black and global majority people, show what we seek to do around community wealth building. I could go on, Madam Deputy Speaker, but time, I think, will evade. On the 2030 target, and I won't steal Councillor Adams' thunder because pensions is next, what we've sought to do there is the council's direct emissions is bringing that target down to 2030. The topics that Councillor Binny Lubbock talked about around consumption-based emissions and the work of the Pensions Committee are all in line with Paris and 1.5 and have become ever more ambitious. And I'm sure they will want to look at not only how they can do more around a 2030 target, but also I know there's work going on to look at how they can invest in our delivery of the 2030 target through the pension fund and innovation. On advertising, consumption-based emissions are really, really important. I think we have to be really sensitive about what we allow in terms of advertising, but we also need to generate income. I know there's some work that Councillor Kennedy's been leading around ethical advertising. That work continues. And I was responding on Twitter today. I think we want to make sure that, when we're having adverts filmed in the borough, when we're seeing film production in the borough, that we reduce the carbon impact of those things and look at some of those areas. I think, Madam Deputy Speaker, I've covered all of that, and I'm happy to stop there and recommend the strategic plan to Council. Thank you.
Thank you. We will then move to vote on that. Can we agree that the strategic plan be adopted? And secondly, oh, apologies. Okay, against, yeah. So it's been noted, thank you. And secondly, that an annual cycle of progress updates to full council in May of each year linked to the annual meeting. Agreed. So we will then be able to move on to agenda item 11 from the Pensions Committee annual report. I'd like to invite the Chair of Pensions Committee, Councillor Adams, to introduce the report, and you have up to 5 minutes to do so.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I would like to take this opportunity of expressing my personal appreciation for all the hard work, commitment to Hackney Pension Fund that the rest of the committee have put in. Given the considerable challenge that we face in managing a 1.9 billion pension fund during a period of considerable challenge for both the LGPS and the wider economy. Particular thanks are due to Councillor Chapman, who stepped down as chair of committee in May 2022. On behalf of the committee, I would like to thank him for his leadership and dedication over the last 8 years. I would also like to thank the hard work put in by our special advisors, Ian Williams, the Group Director of Finance and Corporate Resources, and his staff over the past years. The Pension Committee is responsible for the management of the pension fund and act on behalf of the London Borough of Hackney as the administrating authority. We are responsible for all aspects of managing the pension fund, including the fund's investment, maintaining member records, and ensuring that governance arrangements are appropriate. This is a considerable responsibility. The fund actuarial valuation of 31st March 2019 saw a fund level of 92%. Initial results from the 2022 valuation suggest that This had improved to 106% as at 31st March 2022, largely as a result of strong investment performance. Whilst 2022 valuation is yet to be finalized, the council is set to reduce its contribution rate by 2 to 3% from 1st of April 2023, from 30% to 27% or 20%. In 2016, the pension committee set a target for the fund to reduce exposure to fossil fuel reserve by at least 50% over the 6 years to 2022. With an interim review in 2019, by the time of the interim review, we had reduced exposure to carbon reserve by 31.4%, well over halfway to the target. These results were used to inform a revised investment strategy, which was implemented during 2021-22. The final review against the target took place during 2022. The results showed that the fund had reduced its exposure to carbon reserve by 96.9% between July 2016 and November 2021, demonstrating significant outperformance of the fund's original target to reduce exposure by 50% by 2022. We are very proud to have responded to this issue early and to have been one of the LGPS fund to set transparently monitored performance against a carbon reduction target. 2021-22 has been a busy year for the Acne Pension Fund, with a focus on implementation of revised investment strategy and the development of the fund's responsible investment policy. The fund has also continued to implement significant improvements to its third-party administration service and made significant improvements to the quality of its membership data. 2021-22 has also been seen another busy year for our administration team. Improvement to the fund administration service have continued to be a major focus. Continued work of introducing online member and employer self-service, as well as the ongoing project to manage anticipated regulatory changes following the McLeod judgment on age discrimination. The team have also continued a major program of work with council payroll and ICT team to help improve the quality of data submitted to the fund. The team have assisted in development of a new interface for the council to submit data, which went live early in 2022. The fund has seen a significant improvement in the quality of data held as a result of the project, which has been reflected in the 2022 valuation and annual listing. It is worth remembering that the fund is there for the pensioners, including former officers of the council, who has given considerable valuable years of service to Acne. It is therefore to provide the best value for money to ensure their pension continue to be paid. Madam Deputy Speaker, I present the report to the report of the Pension Committee to the full council to be noted. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Adams. Do members wish to debate the report? If so, you will have 5 minutes to do so.
Sorry, Madam Deputy Speaker. Just to put on record that I received some questions from Councillor Benin Lobok and Councillor Gerbert, which were considered at last night's Pension Committee meeting. They will be receiving a written response as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Do members wish to debate the report? The Mayor, thank you.
I just wanted to say a huge thanks to Councillor Adams and all the work of the Pensions Committee, the support that the officers give, and the former chair, Councillor Chapman. And I think if Councillor Chapman was here, he would just pick out 2 highlights from Councillor Adams' speech. The fact that we are 103% funded means that we can reduce the contribution that council taxpayers are paying today to the pension fund, which helps us close our budget gap. Many other council pension funds across the country haven't been as astutely steered and aren't able to take that dividend. And it does not mean any loss of security for either current staff thinking about retiring or those former staff that are already drawing down their pensions. And that puts us in a really strong position and is one of the bedrocks of how we've managed austerity and the period of cuts.
Thank you. Anything further from any members? If not, can council agree to note the report? Thank you. In which case we'll move on to agenda item 12, overview and scrutiny annual report. I invite Councillor Gordon, chair of the scrutiny panel, to introduce the report, and you have up to 5 minutes to do so.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. It's my great pleasure and privilege to introduce the annual report for scrutiny for municipal year 2021 to 22. Fearless, focused and effective backbench scrutiny of the executive in public is an essential safeguard across local government and is particularly vital in the mayoral system. In a rapidly changing and often bewildering world, scrutiny in Hackney has sought to shape the council's response to many of the challenges we face and to push the executive to deliver better services to the residents we all serve. The last year has seen great challenges for our communities and the council. So we emerged from the first phase of the pandemic and the council worked to restore services following a cyber attack. The shocking assault on Child Q propelled Hackney into the national spotlight. Over the last year, the horrors of the climate emergency have become more and more evident. The cost of living crisis is blighting lives. Scrutiny has had a vital role in shaping our local response to these events, and giving a voice to our communities, and we have been well placed to respond to these challenges. Particularly in relation to the response to Child Q, we've been able to draw on evidence and recommendations from previous investigations which highlighted systemic racism in our institutions. As a critical friend to the administration, scrutiny brings challenge at all stages of policy development. We've been pleased to contribute to the ongoing development of many positive cross-cutting policies, including Hackney's response to the climate emergency, poverty strategy, the Ageing Well strategy and anti-racism. We will continue this work into the new administration. We continue to innovate in scrutiny, retaining hybrid meetings which allow a broader range of voices to be heard, taking scrutiny into the community. We've worked agilely across commissions with joint pieces of work such as housing for care leavers and disparities in maternal mental health. Scrutiny panels continue to develop our cross-cutting role, focusing on the corporate accountability for the Climate Action Plan, the Council's poverty framework, as well as our critical role in budget scrutiny. Children and young people have published the outcomes of children excluded from schools in Hackney, many of the recommendations having already shaped policy, and continues to work on examining why our adolescents enter care. Living in Hackney continue to focus on trust and confidence in policing, particularly from global majority residents, has made specific recommendations around stop and search, the energy strategy, climate change, and electric vehicle charging infrastructure. Skills economy and growth examined the impact of COVID and other shocks and has put a spotlight on the role of the council in influencing the recovery and setting Hackney's economy in a trajectory towards one that is inclusive, green and fair. Health in Hackney has had an ongoing focus on monitoring the response to the COVID pandemic and vaccine uptake across our communities, particularly those working in health and social care, support for long COVID and maternal and the mental health impact of the pandemic, as well as changes to provision arising from the integration of health and social care. 5 minutes is very little time to sum up the body of work this report represents, which outlines the contributions of hundreds of individuals and hundreds of hours of work. I'd like to thank and pay tribute to the scrutiny chairs for this period and the vice chairs, councillors Billington, Conway, Hayhurst, Patrick, Adijare, Potter and former councillor Snell, as well as all the commission members, whether councillors or co-optees. We've relied on contributions from the Mayor and Cabinet, officials and experts, both from Hackney and beyond, and most importantly, the individual members of our local community who gave up their time to contribute to scrutiny. I'd also like to thank the brilliant members of our scrutiny team,
1
led by
minute,
Tracy
please.
Anderson, who all take enormous pride in their work, are instrumental in pushing the boundaries of what can be achieved by council scrutiny function, and are always fiercely protective of our continuing independence. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to commend the report to the council.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gordon. Should members wish to debate the report, you'll have 5 minutes to do so. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chair. I think Councillor Garbett asked a specific question about what Hackney have been doing in terms of keeping an eye on privatisation within the borough. Thank you for the opportunity to answer that question. I think the biggest challenge for privatisation has come to primary care, our GP practices, in the last 12 to 24 months. So you will all know that an American firm, Centene, and its UK arm, Oprose Health, took over 34 practices across London. One of those was in Hackney, and a number of those were in East London. You will also know that there was the focus of a Panorama documentary raising concerns in terms of their practices. What did we do in Health in Hackney? We called in our local commissioners to ask them questions and understand what they could do if there was a transfer, an application to transfer a GP practice into private hands. They essentially told us there is not much we can do. It is essentially a tick box exercise, and if they pass those tests, there is nothing we can do. So what did we do with that? We wrote a letter to a number of London MPs with a very specific proposal that an amendment be made to national legislation that when a transfer comes of a GP practice, there is a clause in there that enables the local commissioners to reject that transfer or impose conditions. The London MPs took that up. They tabled an amendment to the Health and Social Care Bill, and unfortunately, as you can imagine, for the reasons Councillor Kennedy said earlier, the Conservative majority on that committee rejected that. But that is a very specific example about how we translate what we see here locally, and often we see it first, and we seek to translate that to a national level. No other Health and Scrutiny Commission in London or the country was doing that. I'm very proud of what we do, where we identify where we can pull a lever, we seek to do it. And very briefly, just following on from Councillor Gordon's remark, a big thanks to our executive. They recognise the important work that we do here in scrutiny. That shows incredible political maturity. They open themselves up to accountability. And that enables us to make positive policy suggestions. So a big thanks to the executive as well.
Thank you. Can I ask Councillor Garbett?
So yeah, I know that some of our questions were sent before, but I'd just like to say thank you for a really thorough report, and it's great to see the work of scrutiny set out. One of my questions was what assurance so it was really good to hear that example of where you've really taken something up and followed it through. But we wanted a general assurance of where commission chairs and overview scrutiny chair get that the scrutiny work is having an impact in improving counter and partner activities, and how recommendations implemented are tracked and reviewed. I know that's probably quite broad for all of the work, but just a flavour of how that's done. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mayor Glanville. And then Councillor Gordon to respond. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo, as I always do at this moment, the absolute importance of scrutiny in a mayoral system. Having it funded, having it resourced, having it valued, 62 pages of just 1 year's work, some incredible chairs, never shying away from controversial issues or showing leadership and a voice that sometimes the administration can't provide. I'd like to particularly highlight the work around child queue, school exclusions, and net zero. But as I think Councillor Hayhurst has shown, the real breadth of what we achieve in scrutiny here, I think is almost peerless in local authorities. And I just commend it. And as long as I'm there, we will fund it, resource it, and value it. Thank you.
Thank you. I think Councillor Conway, you had something you'd like to contribute as well.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Councillor Garbett, just in response to your question around the involvement of community organisations and residents, they are central to everything that we do. And when we do a consultation and we ask local residents what's important to them, it's quite easy for responses to come back and to identify things that impact most of us and that most of us can identify. But actually, we have to seek out the instances where it's a small proportion of people who are detrimentally impacted by service cuts, for example. And I think that evidence of that can be seen in the work that we did around care leaver housing offer. It's a very small number of young people, 80 young people in the borough who leave care every year. But we sought out that piece of work. It was a combined joint effort with Living in Hackney Scrutiny Commission that has resulted in us effectively almost doubling our social housing offer to care leavers as a result of the direct engagement also with care experienced young people in the borough. So it's a continuous endeavour for us, and it's something that I hope that we'll all encourage our residents to ensure that their voices are heard in setting our agenda, but also contributing towards the work. And in terms of tracking and monitoring, it's a challenge for us because we're constantly wanting to put as many things on the agenda as we possibly can, but we do track. And I think evidence of when we realise that the implementation of the recommendations hasn't perhaps been as forthcoming as we would have liked is a piece of work that we've done this year around the recruitment of retention of foster carers, where we brought that piece of work back to the Children and Young People Scrutiny Commission to see if we can add further value through the intervention or involvement of foster carers in the borough to sort of set what their experiences have been of the recommendations and whether there's anything further that we can do. So it's an ongoing effort, but it's something that is at the core of what we're hoping to achieve. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Conway. We're actually running over time, but it would be really good if Councillor Gordon, you can respond very succinctly. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Yes, I'd like to thank Councillor Garbutt for her questions, and I'd also like to thank Councillor Garbutt and Councillor Binny Lovett for their proactive and enthusiastic engagement with scrutiny since being elected. And I'm sorry to say this is in sad contrast to the larger opposition group who are no longer here, who have failed to engage with scrutiny and missed numerous opportunities of representing their residents in the scrutiny commissions for, by my calculation, now nearly 8 years. And that is a sorry state of affairs. I mean, thank you very much for these questions. I mean, I've got very little to add to my colleagues' responses, but I mean, obviously, it's going to be an ongoing discussion. I mean, as Councillor Conway has so eloquently put it, residents, and whether as individuals or part of the community, are central to scrutiny. And we always welcome any suggestions in relation to residents' participation. I mean, that is, it's absolutely core to our function, and we really, really would welcome any suggestions. All residents are, welcome to attend scrutiny. Obviously, as you nuanced in your question, as appropriate, and in a focused way, but that is absolutely central to our function. In terms of monitoring, yes, as Councillor Conway said, we do our best on an ongoing basis. We have various powers in the Constitution to bring matters back to scrutiny. It's again, as Councillor Conway said, it's it's an ongoing dialogue with the executive, but it's something that we take very seriously and monitor as best we can. We have it's slightly more challenging sometimes with outside bodies.
If we
outside
can be
the council, but
concluding.
we do strive to use every lever that is available to us to make sure that scrutiny recommendations are as effective as possible. This could be part of an ongoing dialogue. We've obviously got training on Monday where we can continue the conversation. So thank you very much for your contributions.
Many thanks. Can Council agree the report? Thank you. We're moving on to agenda item 13, the motions. There are motions listed on the agenda for consideration this evening. Can I ask all those making speeches? Oh, apologies, Councillor Adams, did you want to speak now? Yep.
Time? All right. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I just want to move a motion to extend the time to for 15 minutes.
So beyond 10 p.m.
No, beyond 10 p.m. Yes, to
Yes.
quarter past.
To quarter past. Okay.
Yeah.
Will anyone second that?
Yes, Madam Speaker, I'll second it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Can I ask if people are agreed to continue on to approximately 10:15? Thank you. That's agreed. So we'll move on to the motions. Thank you very much, Councillor Adams. There are motions listed on the agenda for consideration this evening. Can I ask all those making speeches and contributing to the debate to be focused and succinct in their comments? In accordance with Council Procedure Rule 16.4 of the Council's Constitution, the total time for consideration of motions shall not exceed 30 minutes. Any motion that has not been debated shall stand referred without discussion to the next ordinary meeting of full council, and they will be listed in the relevant agenda item in order received. So we will move to 13A, motion 1, cash welcome here. Councillor Joseph and Councillor Rote, please raise your hand to indicate you're proposing and seconding the motion. Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Rote, can you confirm whether you wish to speak after Councillor Joseph introduces the motion or reserve the right to speak later?
After her, please.
After her. Councillor Joseph, please introduce your motion and you have up to 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. An increasing number of shops and services across Hackney no longer accept cash payments. As the motion sets out, a range of people find it difficult to participate in the economy if they cannot use cash, and there has been no consensus on becoming a cash-free society. Think about it. People who wouldn't necessarily describe themselves as poor still have to budget carefully towards the end of the month, especially at the moment. And they may avoid using cards because they can't afford to go overdrawn or don't want to risk bouncing a direct debit. Maybe some of us in this room know or can imagine what it's like to do constant mental arithmetic, trying to work out if you can use a card without going overdrawn and having to pay fees, or crossing your fingers and hoping a card won't be declined. For those struggling with credit card debt, the advice is to set a weekly cash budget and stick to it. But what good is that if your local shops won't take your money? And it's not only those on low incomes. As the motion points out, many older people are excluded when they can't use cash, finding smartphone banking quite alien, as well as worrying about card fraud. I've spoken to shops in Victoria Ward and tried to understand the reasons for going cash-free. Interestingly, workers on the ground do not tend to support being cash-free. They often said they hated turning people away, they got fewer tips, and the card machine often failed anyway. The decisions by some shops to refuse cash are contributing to a two-tier society. There is already a big divide between the haves and the have-nots in Hackney. A refusal to accept cash payments serves as another marker, creating spaces that cannot be accessed by those without the advantages of youth and good income. I welcome the findings of the National Access to Cash Review, which warned of the severe consequences of sleepwalking into a cashless society. And I note that the government has pledged to protect access to cash withdrawals and deposits in the Financial Service and Markets Bill. But access to cash is only half of the picture. We must protect our ability to spend that cash here in Hackney. It's not often that I look to the USA for political inspiration. However, I am impressed by New York and San Francisco's stance. They have passed legislation which means stores have to accept cash payments. The implications of a cash-free society are complex and far-reaching. The low-paid, children learning about money, older people, and the 2 million people without a bank account will be disadvantaged. Whilst we as a council cannot force anyone to accept cash, we need to take into account the needs of the wider community. As the motion says, 1 in 3 payments made at the council service centre are cash payments. The post office has handled a record number of cash withdrawals and deposits this year. Ultimately, economic inequalities remain regardless of how people are allowed to pay for goods and services. But for those with very little, it is no exaggeration to say that cash is a lifeline. It's easier to ring fence, it's easier to borrow, and when you have it in your hand, you know you can spend it. Let's ensure that council facilities accept cash, and let's use our influence via initiatives such as the Hackney Business Network to encourage local shops to take cash as well as cards. Please support an inclusive economy. Please support the motion. Cash welcome here. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Councillor Joseph. Councillor Rout, would you like to speak? And you have 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'd like to second this motion, and I start by paying tribute to my colleague in Victoria Ward, Councillor Claire Joseph, because the Cash Welcome Here campaign is all her own idea. It's not a national campaign which we're adopting at local level, but exactly the opposite. It's a grassroots campaign which is growing. Councillor Joseph noticed that following the move towards the more card use during the COVID lockdown, many businesses were choosing to stick with card-only sales. As she's already outlined, not taking cash runs counter to an inclusive society. It disadvantages people on a tight budget, it disadvantages older people, children, and those with no bank account, like refugees, asylum seekers, and vulnerable migrants. When Councillor Joseph pointed this out, some companies, like the cafe at Britannia Leisure Centre, responded very positively, and the tills there started to jangle again to the sound of coins and, rustle with notes. But we need all shops, cafes, pubs and restaurants to make this change. The Council's backing for Cash Welcome Here will be a vital step in the right direction. But we also need the government to protect cash. Not only do they need to help people to get ready access to small amounts of cash from cash machines without incurring a fee, they also need to legislate for mandatory cash acceptance in shops and businesses. I would hope our colleagues here from the Green Party, and I would have hoped that our Tory colleagues too, could have joined us in asking for that. Together, we can show that Hackney means business on cash by voting unanimously for this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rout. We'll now proceed with the debate on the motion, and I've been informed that we have 4 people that would already like to speak. Councillor Williams, Turbo Deloff, Rathbone and Premru, and so we can take them in that order, please.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I just want to thank Councillor Joseph for bringing the motion to full council. It's an excellent campaign, and I really welcome that she has started this at a grassroots level. I just want to point out one other consequence of having a cashless society and the reduction in shops, local businesses taking cash. It does mean, particularly during the cost of living crisis, that our residents who have small amounts of cash, that they don't benefit and they are restricted to a much smaller geographical area. They don't get out and about as far as other people do. They have to shop locally. They don't benefit from discounts in larger stalls in the borough, but also outside of the borough. So I really do welcome this. I think that we need to stand up and work with our business community. And as the Mayor was saying earlier, an increasing number of businesses are paying the London living wage. They are socially conscious. They believe in a just society. And I'm sure that what we can do is work with you on this campaign to increase the number of businesses that believe in what you are doing and what you're standing up for. So I really do hope that everyone in the chamber supports this motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Turbo Deloff.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Yes, I most certainly want to speak in favour of the Cash Welcome Here motion, especially because of the communities that I work with, migrant communities that find themselves in really terrible circumstances where they cannot open a bank account. Nearly 2 million people do not have a bank account in the UK, which means that daily purchases and purchasing of essentials, food, school uniforms and more become an absolute hurdle. This is why I want to say that this is a phenomenal campaign. I congratulate my colleague, Councillor Joseph. I'm learning as a new councillor as well. I feel very inspired by working with phenomenal, powerful women here that are fighting for our communities. And I believe that this is a step forward towards a fully socioeconomic inclusion of the many that are struggling to purchase daily food and daily essentials for themselves. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker.
Thank you very much. Councillor Rathbone, please.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. First of all, I want to congratulate Councillor Joseph and Councillor Root on bringing forward this initiative. Not just bringing forward words, but bringing actions to their own ward with their ward colleagues, visiting and encouraging local shopkeepers to continue to take cash. Well done, guys. It shows that Labour does care about the everyday issues that affect every resident. Our councillors are very much in touch with their communities. Cash is deeply imbued in our culture. The old nursery rhyme, hot cross buns, 1 a penny, 2 a penny, doesn't sound quite the same when modernised. Hot cross buns, 1 a debit, 2 a transfer. Not quite there, is it? So as a paralegal specialising in debt counselling, I can say that when people are deep into debt problems, measuring things with cash becomes an important way of managing out of that situation. There are also many people who do not have debit or credit cards or only have a post office account for their benefits to be paid into. Cash is very important in Hackney. However it is, people continue to want to use coins and notes. In our markets, we have actually encouraged the card reader on stalls because that's where a lot of customers are coming from. But we also still encourage them to take cash as well, because many people are still using cash in our markets. So why can we not have a mixed economy of cash and card? I know that some shopkeepers can find cash is difficult, but isn't it about ensuring everyone feels a part of our society and can purchase items in the traditional way? With the cost of living crisis now upon us, caused by 12 years of bungling by the Conservative government, it's all the more important that our residents have the best means to manage their dwindling incomes. Thank you.
Councillor Premier.
Thanks very much. And again, echoing those heartfelt thanks for the action on this very important motion. And it's come at a really, really critical time with increasing cost of living crisis. In the Scrutiny Commission the other day, in the Economy, Growth and Skills, we had a chance to speak to Transport for London about the very real need for our residents to use buses as the affordable mode of transport. And thank goodness we had that fantastic news today about the buses in Hackney, and big thanks to all the campaigners and especially our residents in Hackney too. What we also touched on was that for a while now, Transport for London has, however, been cash-free, which is another example where it is sometimes prohibitively difficult for people to use transport in certain circumstances. So given the very severe cost of living crisis that we're going through now, hope that there might be some sort of solution to that at some point. Locally in Clissold, we're always concerned that with changes in demographics and venues, that people are not excluded. In some of our local pubs and bordering pubs, these are now cash-free. That's if you have enough money to go to the pub. Most people are using it for far more basic things, actually, travelling to affordable shops and culturally appropriate markets and shops, and to feed their families. So thank you for this. We welcome cash-free.
Thank you, Councillor Premroe. I think due to time constraints, we are going to move to the vote now. Members are asked to vote for, against or abstain, and this is not a recorded vote. Those in favour? Those against? I declare that this motion is definitely carried. Thank you to Councillor Adams for extending tonight's meeting. It means that we can now move on to the final motion, I think, for this evening, which is 13B, Motion 2, the Climate and Ecology Bill. Following the publication of the agenda, proposed amendments to the motion were received. I understand from the proposer and seconder of the motion, which I will confirm with them in a moment, that they were prepared to accept one of those proposed amendments, and therefore in the papers circulated this evening, you have the wording of the motion to be put to council following the agreement. There were, as I understand it, some further proposed amendments that were not agreed, and we will come to those later. Councillor Binny Lubbock and Councillor Garbutt, please could you raise your hands to indicate you're proposing and seconding the motion as set out on the papers circulated to members this evening, rather than as appearing in the printed agenda papers. Thank you. Councillor Garbutt, can you confirm whether you wish to speak immediately after Councillor Binny Lubbock or reserve your right to speak later?
Reserve my right to speak later, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Binny Lubbock, please introduce your motion and you have up to 5 minutes.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. A quick content warning. This speech will cover some very distressing aspects of the path towards climate catastrophe that we're currently sleepwalking along. Tackling climate change and its impacts is the defining crisis of our time. Sadly, on a global level, political leadership is far too slow as we witness climate breakdown happening even more quickly than we feared. But working from the ground up, we hold the power to demand action in the face of this global threat. To paraphrase the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, the climate emergency is a race we are losing, but it's a race we must win. Nowhere is immune from the devastating consequences of climate change, even here in Hackney. Recently, we've seen how poor infrastructure leads to flooding and sewage being pumped into our precious river ecosystems. We've seen how, as part of a global food system, we're susceptible to food insecurity following the invasion of Ukraine, and the impacts on our food systems of the climate crisis threaten to be of a magnitude more challenging. Rising temperatures are fueling environmental degradation, natural disasters, extreme weather events like this summer's heatwave, when the Office for National Statistics counted 3,271 excess deaths in the UK. That's 82 a day between the period of the start of June and the end of August. On the 18th and 19th of July, a Met Office read extreme heat weather warning and a UK Health Security Agency level 4 heat health alert were in force. According to the UK Climate Risk Independent Assessment Technical Report, the number of heat-related deaths in the UK could increase to 7,040 deaths per year by 2050. When we face the economic disruption beyond what we saw during the pandemic, climate displacement, sea levels rising, the Arctic melting, coral reefs dying, oceans acidifying, and forests burning, it's clear that business as usual is not good enough. As the infinite cost of climate changes reaches irreversible highs, now is the time for bold collective action. We must do everything we can to keep the planet from warming past multiple tipping points that may make it unlivable for human and many other species. The Climate and Ecology Bill is the only proposed legislation before the UK Parliament that ensures a comprehensive and joined-up approach to the emergency in line with the most up-to-date science. I'd like to address the amendments that have been put before the Council by the Labour Group. We would like to thank Diane Abbott, MP Diane Abbott, for supporting the bill and strongly encourage Hackney South MP Meg Hillier to support it to show how seriously she takes this issue in contrast to her support for airport expansion. We've been led to believe that the majority group are concerned that our pledges are attempting to use the motion to alter the Council approach on policy, which and are not related to the thrust of the motion. However, we would argue that these pledges are a logical extension of acknowledging the thrust of the bill, and we hope that the Council will support them tonight. And be in no doubt, the Green Group on this Council will continue to attempt to alter the Council's approach on policy to be greener. However, I'd like to draw attention to the fact that the bill itself aims to provide a joined-up strategy that recognises two aspects of the climate emergency, global warming and the ecological breakdown. These are not separate issues, but intrinsically linked. It is comprised of a climate goal, a nature goal, and proposes the foundation of a citizens' assembly to better represent the public in policy making. A citizens' assembly for Hackney was in this mayor's manifesto, so that's not an attempt to change the council's promised approach. The other pledges are there to reaffirm the commitments we hope to see come out of the final climate action plan for Hackney. The pledge to write to the Secretary of State for Education to ask for their support for a nature premium to guarantee regular time in nature for all children and young people, with additional funding and support to level up those with the least access to nature, as advocated for by the Institute of Outdoor Learning, is, I think, really important to help children in our borough who may have less access to nature. And this speaks to the Climate and Ecology Bill's nature goals that would have a real and lasting impact on child mental health, which particularly since the pandemic lockdowns has been a growing crisis, and this may increase with children particularly impacted by climate anxiety. I'd like to extend our thanks to Zero Hour for the campaign behind this bill and Green MP Caroline Lucas for introducing this bill. I'd like to end by commending the good work and climate leadership of this council, and I hope that today we're able to come together to support this really important bill's progress through Parliament, its approach, and through some very powerful local measures. Thank you very much.
Thank you. As mentioned, we also have some further amendments proposed by Councillor Smythe and seconded by Councillor Lufkin, which members can see in the papers circulated this evening. Councillor Smythe and Councillor Lufkin, please can you raise your hands to confirm that you wish to propose and second these amendments? Thank you. Councillor Smythe, do you wish to explain your proposed amendments? You would have 5 minutes to do so.
Yes, please. Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. You will see this has been circulated earlier, so you will see that one of the amendments which has been accepted, I just want to read it out because it's just adding to our great record, our great green record here in Hackney. So it's under Hackney Council also notes, first point, the work of Hackney Council to reduce carbon emissions, reverse biodiversity decline and tackle toxic air pollution, and this is our amendment, such as switching its energy supply to 100% renewable sources, establishing Hackney Light and Power, a community energy fund, supporting walking, cycling and public transport, increasing the recycling rate in the borough by 11% and planting 5,000 new street trees. We felt that was important to get in there. On the more contentious aspects, there is under the therefore Hackney Council resolves 2 bit, point 2, it states, the original states, write to Diane Abbott MP and Meg Hillier MP, letting them know that this motion has been passed. We're suggesting, Councillor Lufkin and I, that we strike out urging Meg Hillier MP to sign up to support the bill and thanking Diane Abbott MP for already doing so. I think it's rather ungracious for us to tell our MPs what to do, and this is ultimately why I want to strike that. Well, Councillor Lufkin and I want to strike that bit out. The climate and ecology bill is currently sort of evolving itself through the House of Commons. It's reached its second reading, but there's also an ecology bill which originated in the House of Lords, which is also sponsored by Lord Redesdale, and that is moving through the House of Lords. So there's a kind of evolving bill situation going on with this ecology stuff going. I don't want to dig deep into this, but that's also going on. So there's this bill and then the ecology bill going through the House of Lords, which is more sort of nature focused. So that's the second amendment, and then on to the further resolves. Councillor Lufkin and I believe that we should strike out all of that. You will see that at the end of the motion. The further resolve section, it was attempting to use the motion to alter council approach or policy, which you've already mentioned, which was not related to the main thrust of the motion, which you've also mentioned, its notes or further notes section. And I think this chamber would agree with most of the pledges on there, and a lot of them in many ways are covered in the actual bill itself. And the bill and your motion is relating to the climate and ecology bill, and this is ultimately why we want to strike all of that off, because we don't think it's completely relevant to the thrust of the motion. And to ensure the motion is focused on the subject matter set out in the motion title and in the notes section, it was felt that the further resolve section should be deleted, as I've mentioned, to make it clear the motion is about the council supporting the climate and ecology bill as it's currently going through the House of Commons. And given that the climate action plan is currently out for consultation, it was felt that there was an ample opportunity for members and residents to have their say on the council's plan and the wider policy without the need for the resolves set out. So that's our position. I hope that's clear for everyone. Striking out the Meg Hillier MP to sign up to support it, because we don't want to tell our MPs what to do, because that's rather ungracious. And then in terms of the further pledges, I believe a lot of them are contained in the bill itself, and as I've spoken about, it doesn't really relate to the thrust of the motion, which is about the climate and ecology bill. So I hope that makes sense, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can I ask, do members wish to debate the amendments or move directly to a vote on these amendments? Vote. Okay. Can I now put the amendments to the vote? As with the earlier motion, unless any members have an objection, I intend to deal with all the proposed amendments en masse. So those in favour of the amendments, apologies. Those against? Any abstentions? I declare that the amendments are carried, and we will now proceed with the debate on the substantive motion. Councillor Garbett, did you want to come in at that? Apologies, yes.
If the amendment is carried, so the motion has been carried as amended. So now we're moving to the vote. We move to the amended motion.
I'm being told that we still have to vote on the substantive motion with the amendments. Okay, so we can still call Councillor Garbett, as you wanted to speak, is that right? So you've got 2 minutes to speak, and then the motion will be put to a vote.
Do you want to check if anyone else wanted to vote to speak to the motion amended, and then I could come in after them if anyone else wanted to speak?
I'm being advised that the substantive motion has been amended, and so you can, that's what the debate is now about, and you're entitled to speak.
So I was just checking that no one else was going to speak on the amended motion.
No, that's, yes, yes, so it's your turn to speak.
Great. I just want to kind of reiterate what Councillor Binny Lovett was saying. I appreciate it's now an amended motion, so it waters down the local action being taken, but I do absolutely implore you to support the motion as amended. This is a critical time for the climate. This is a local authority that takes huge pride in its climate action, and as we've noted, there's huge leadership in this area, and we really hope that this motion is passed so that we can show our kind of continued support for the and advocate for residents' passion around this area. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Garbett. The motion as amended will now be put to the vote. Members are to vote for, against, or abstain. Those in favour? Everybody. I won't do the other bits then. I declare that the motion is carried. Thank you very much. We have now reached the end of the 30 minutes allocated to motions. As previously advised, any formal motion not debated shall stand referred without discussion to the next ordinary meeting of full council for discussion. Motions will be listed at the relevant agenda item in order of received. At 10:10, we have come to the end of the agenda, and I will declare this meeting closed. But before I do, I have been handed a very formal piece of paper to ask any councillors that haven't signed the register outside, can you please sign them so that we can have a full attendance record. The Mayor has organised refreshments in Bridgetown Bar funded by the majority group for any members that wish to attend. Thank you very much.
Please be upstanding for the Deputy Speaker of the London Borough of Hackney.